Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. And those that didn't hear me at the beginning, we're taking a motion to adjourn the Board of Aldermen special meeting. So now, I'm going to call this meeting to order. And if you would, follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation by Alderman Lucas.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in prayer. Father God, as we come before your great throne, it's with true humility and thanksgiving. We ask, Lord God, that you be with us tonight, guide us and direct us in all that we do. Let your spirit just hover over us, Lord, giving us peace and wisdom in all that we do and say and think. Bless each one that's here tonight. Bless their homes and their families. And bless our servicemen wherever they are. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Artie. Madam Clerk, we had a roll call, please.
Harkness,
Here.
Lucas, Cooper, Milton,
Here.
Denham, Scholes,
Here.
Williams.
Present.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
So Director Cindy Shook, will you please present the Parks and Recreation Employee of the Month for May 2026, please?
Come on down. So on behalf of the mayor, Board of Aldermen, and the city staff, it is my honor to announce custodial technician Emilio Grotto as the City of Branson's May 2026 Service and Excellent Employee of the Month. So Emilio, if you guys don't know him, he is our go-to person in the downtown area. He has taken on the responsibility of serving the downtown community, and several of them are here today, with professionalism and efficiency and pride in his work. He is dedicated to keeping the downtown area clean and welcoming and has been recognized by both residents and business owners. I think we even, a couple of months ago, even had a business owner from downtown call us and took the time to express his gratitude for Emilio's hard work and constant presence in the downtown area. Emilio approaches each task with a positive attitude and a smile, always willing to help and look for ways to better serve the downtown community. Through his hard work, relationship building, and attention to detail, downtown spaces have seen a decrease in issues such as graffiti. Emilio's strong work ethic and commitment to serve truly makes him deserving of this recognition. And I want to say congratulations to Emilio and thank you for your hard work. And we've got a sign for him. Here we go. There's your sign. His sign has musical notes and Romans 8:28 on it. So I thought that was really special. So picture, okay.
Does he want to say a few words? Cindy, does he want to say a few words? Thank you. Yeah. Congrats. Oh, and his wife, son, and daughter, they're there in the back row. You must be proud. Yeah. Well, that's very cool. So this is the public comment section of the Board of Aldermen meeting. At this time, the board will hear the citizens who have signed up in the order they are listed. Please note the clerk will let speakers know when they have 30 seconds left, and a notification will sound when their time is up. We ask that speakers wrap up their comments upon hearing the 30-second warning. If a speaker would like a board member to bring an item from the consent agenda down for additional discussion, please note this request during comments. Please come to the freestanding podium to address the board. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Yes, sir, we do. We have one speaker, Amber Thompson.
Okay, where's my timer at? Right there. There we go. Where's the timer? Stay with.
Timer's up there.
Oh, up there. Okay. Yeah, I'm Amber Thompson. Y'all know me very well. Good to see everyone. And I apologize to tell you the news that I have as a witness. And I want to remind you of Plato said that no man is more hated than him who tells the truth. And, you know, my feelings have been extremely hurt by the local court here. And a lot of you have not experienced the cruel hardship of being falsely accused and abused by people in the court system. August 31st, 2024, it's been almost 2 years. Judge Arnell has dragged the court case out and dragged the court case out. But I'm a witness that women in this area, and I'm sure all across the United States, have had a lot of trouble finding employment that's stable, that provides, where they can take care of their children, especially single mothers, okay? But even with that, I was arrested that day, the 31st, coming back from Thunder Ridge Arena. I had done a work while app, and during that time, I had to be forced with there was 12 to 17 sheriffs that night, and it was the only job at that time when I came back to the area because I was looking all over the United States for land to build a new place and start a new life, maybe. And I was running into a lot of weird cops that kept pulling me over. I was drugged at the restaurant, and LSD, whatever they gave me, I kept seeing things after. And I got real nervous that night when I ordered dinner. I was by myself. It was the only place I went out to eat for lunch for a second. It's getting extremely dangerous is what I'm trying to get to. But here in this area, Taney County, we had 3 sheriffs that night that showed up. One that followed me for 5 miles, and he put that in his report. But he also lied in his report. None of them had cameras on that night. That's my biggest thing to first of all tell you. We have 3 sheriffs in the middle of the night out in the woods. I was almost home. I can't go from point A to point B as a woman without being pulled over, stopped, and he was coming at me like a grizzly bear, okay? We don't have grizzly bears to worry about getting attacked. We don't have men with hijabs. We have terroristic sheriffs, okay? They didn't have a camera on even their car dash, all right? I was scared to death. I was screaming at the people driving by because he was screaming to get out of the car. I had a $700 ER visit, okay? And my public defender, because I tried to even ask, was it Paul Jansen, whatever his name is, the local attorneys there to take my case. Nobody would take my money. I had a reasonable amount of money, several $1,000s to offer them. No one would take the case. The public defender, Luke Daney, told me that, no, you can't show those records from the hospital that you got attacked that night. Okay, he said, that Sheriff Mark Shin said that I kicked him, so now I'm labeled a violent offender for potentially the rest of my life. And the second to last time I was before the court, I've had to appear 16 times, okay, to bow before the Queen and do nothing but show my face, okay? And I wasn't allowed to talk. She tried to get me arrested. And the last guy's name is Nixon. I don't know if he's related to Jeremiah Nixon or not, but she was appointed by the governor at that time was Jeremiah Nixon. Okay, she was coming out of her seat at me, so the next time I wore a mask, because everyone knows, you know my personality very well. I have a bad kidney, so I have trouble breathing sometimes, so it helps my breathing. But again, for safety reasons, I went to training also to become a cop. I applied here in Branson. I didn't get an interview, nothing, just denied, okay? I applied out of state. I got to go to at least the testing, a physical ability test, and I took a written test. Praise the Lord, I passed all that. I don't know if I'm safe working in these places or any of us women, but there were 3 DoorDash women in that jail cell that night. I got attacked. The sheriff Goforth, and I'm watching my time, who I had been doing DoorDash before that, and I had a man, the true criminals, okay, are getting off the hook like that. He had the door open like this with a crowbar above my head when I was leaving, first name was Loretta's Street right there in Heritage Trail. I had a picture of him even. That's the only time he stopped. So if we don't have AI cameras on these people, They're not going to do anything but lie, lie, and lie again. One of those sheriffs, thank heavens, did tell the truth. Yeah, I did not have any drugs or alcohol on me. He knew I was an honest person. I still got arrested that night, and they're taking these DoorDash women even out, is what I'm trying to say. We don't even have a right to work in this country, obviously. So it has to be fixed. They have to replace Ted Jardell.
30
I would get
seconds.
rid of all of them, to be honest with you. I would gut the sheriff team out to the hilt. I would even psych eval every single one of these cops here and try to find out, give them 40-page documents on them, like they did me on every one of the sheriffs. My public defender wouldn't even let me show that I had bruises on my body. I can't even get housing or anywhere in the United States or work if I'm labeled violent. That's all I'm going to say. And everybody knows I was always said to be a kindergarten teacher. I was a teacher back in my days and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any items that any member of the board or staff would like to have moved down from the consent agenda to ask additional questions? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please read the items on the consent agenda?
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Aldermen minutes for the April 28th, 2026 special meeting and April 28th, 2026 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of monthly contract report from April 6, 2026 to May 3rd, 2026, and final reading of bill number 6669, an ordinance approving the contract with GTC UNO LLC for antenna site lease and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Do I have a motion approving the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you provide a roll call vote?
Harkness?
Yes.
Lucas? Cooper?
Yes.
Denham?
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
The result of the vote is 6-0. Motion carries. Your Honor, the next item is a presentation of the 2026 first quarter City of Branson financials.
We'll begin with a report from Allison. Hello, Allison.
Hello, how are you guys? We're here. So I'm here to present the first quarter financials of 2026, which is January through March of 31st. So we'll start with the general fund. So year-to-date, we've collected $9,359,257 in revenue, and we've expended $6,450,097 in expenditures. Our revenues year-to-date are 5% greater than they were at quarter one of 2025. Here we can see general fund revenue and expenditures compared to the budgeted amount for 2026. We have collected 34% of budgeted revenues and expended 23% of budgeted expenditures. We are 25% done with the year. Moving on to the tourism fund, we have collected $3,135,638 in revenue and expended $1,007,928 in expenditures. Our year-to-date revenue is 6.4% greater than quarter one of 2025, and our expenditures are $61,000 greater than quarter one of 2025. Moving on to compare tourism revenues to our budget for 2026, we have collected 16% of budgeted revenues, and we have expended 4% of budgeted expenditures. For transportation, we have collected $2,460,008 in revenue and expended $1,838,360 in expenditures. Our revenue has increased 9.8% when compared to 2025, which is mainly due to some grant funding, some ARPA funding that we received at the beginning of 2026, and then quarter one expenditures and transfers out have increased 8% when compared to quarter one of 2025. Here we compare transportation to the budget for 2026. We've collected 26% of budgeted revenue, and we've expended 20% of budgeted expenditures. In our public safety fund, which includes our police and fire fund, we've collected $4,515,959 in revenue and expended $3,376,366 in expenditures. So it says increase, that's supposed to be decreased. It's decreased $17,000. This is due to grant income, which we have not received in 2026 and received in 2025. Here we compare our public safety revenue and expenditures to the budget, and we've collected 27% of budgeted revenues and expended 19% of budgeted expenditures, which includes transfers out and transfers in. For our water and sewer fund, we've collected $2,905,402 in revenue and expended $2,565,530 in expenditures. Our charges for service for quarter one are less than our charges for services of quarter one of 2025, but our penalties and interest have increased over quarter one of 2025. And here we compare water and sewer revenue to the budget. We've collected 25% of budgeted revenues, and we've expended 13% of budgeted expenditures. For our Parks and Rec Fund, we have collected $816,860 and expended $844,074. This is 7% higher than it was in 2025. And here we compare our Parks and Rec revenues to our budget. So we've collected 19% of budgeted revenues and expended 19% of budgeted expenditures. And here we get to the fun stuff. So this is tourism tax by class. These are our actual collections for our business. So this is not when the city collects it. We have moved these back to the month that they're collected by the business. So for amusement tourism tax, it has decreased by 13% when compared to quarter one of 2025. Our theater revenue has increased 5% over quarter one of 2025. Our hotels and motels have increased 11% over quarter one of 2025. Campground has increased 45% when compared to 2025. If you remember, campground was down all of last year, so it was really, really low. We had seen a huge decrease, so now we're seeing that kind of level back out. And you can see that we had an increase in January and in March. Short-term rental tourism tax has remained flat over 2025, so we didn't really see a huge increase or anything. It was like a 0.1% increase overall when we compared the numbers for what we've collected so far year to date. And then restaurants and concessions is up 59% over 2025. And you can see that in January, we had a huge spike in restaurant and concessions. Another thing I want you guys to remember is we show you guys this data based on when we receive the money, when we receive the dollars. So we're not recording revenue for anyone before we receive it because we wouldn't know what they owe us. So that could be like that huge spike in January. It could just be late returns. And we received all the revenue in January, so we report it to you guys in January. So I did just want to state that just because that's when we're reporting it, so we expect the business collected that in January. We really collected that in February. We moved back to January's report because in our old module, we didn't have the ability to tell between the date that they paid it and the date it was due for. It didn't export all of that. But in our new financial system for tourism tax, we are able to say, this is the month it was supposed to be remitted for, and this is the date that they paid it. And so we're going to be able to give better metrics going forward on when we're receiving the revenue, when the revenue is due for, how past due it was. And that's stuff that we couldn't currently do in our system. So going forward, these will be a lot more accurate on when they should have been reported and everything. And we'll start showing you graphs on when the tax was for and when they actually remitted it. So it kind of gives you an understanding of past dues and when we're getting the revenue and how accurate it is tracked on tourism. And then we're going to move on to sales tax. And so this is based on when the city collects the sales tax revenue, and we do not push this back. If we were to push this back, January revenue that's recorded on this report is actually November's business sales. But this report is based on when the city collects it, which is 2 months after the tax is collected by the business. So we have seen a 3.4% increase in unrestricted sales tax revenue. And then for public safety and transportation sales tax, we've seen a 4% increase over quarter one of 2025 for sales tax. Here is our tourism tax and our sales tax revenue when it comes to vehicle counts. So you can see there's a positive correlation for the most part in most circumstances that if traffic counts increase, that our taxes are also increasing. There's a few odd months where it's decreasing a little bit and you don't really see it where counts are decreasing, but sales tax is going up. So that first graph there, if you look at the gray line, that's the tourism tax revenue. And then the bars are the count of traffic and we use 76 as our base count for traffic counts. So you can kind of see that they're kind of correlating. So if traffic counts decrease, then our revenue is also decreasing. Then we move on to sales tax revenue. You'll see that in November and December on that graph at the top right corner, that November and December kind of decrease in traffic counts, but our revenue is increasing for our sales tax revenue. And then in this graph, these sales tax graphs are when the business would have collected it because that's the only way to do a correlation. So we are doing it based on when the business collected the tax here. And that's why you see it only as December of 2025 and not 2026 because we only have January's data when it comes to 2026 as of March. And then the bottom graph there, you can see tourism tax revenue versus vehicle counts, and that's just for 2026, unlike the top two graphs, and we've compared that So you can see the traffic counts to tourism tax revenue, which is the gray line. Here, going forward, we'll also have these reports that I'm showing you right here. We'll have these for all of our different tourism tax collections. We are building that out in CitizenServe right now, so we can take a taxing district, break it down by collection type, and then apply the traffic counts on top of that. Right now, we're only using traffic counts for 76, but going forward, I've gotten the data from Michael to do different districts. So like the downtown district, I can take those traffic counts and then compare it to the downtown collections of tourism tax, along with the types of tourism tax that were collected in that district. We will have all that capability going forward now that we are in CitizenServe. So this graph shows the last 3 years of traffic counts along with the last 3 years of sales tax revenue for just the 76 district. So you can see it's kind of correlating with traffic counts for the most part. It's going up when traffic counts go up, and it's decreasing when traffic counts go down. And then once again, we're using traffic counts just for 76 right now to compare everything, because that's the metrics that we had at this time. So then here you see downtown sales tax revenue. This is just sales tax that was collected in the downtown district, and you can see how that correlates to traffic counts. And then you can see November and December, we're still increasing in revenue, but we're not seeing that huge increase in counts. And then we did the Branson Landing as well. So you can see that correlation of traffic counts for the sales tax generated in that district. I'm going to start back here with the most interesting report. Are there any questions about this report?
So Allison, the previous charts, excuse me, when we were talking about the gross revenues to the city, tax revenues, you commented a couple times that includes the grants in the revenues. Could we maybe in the future maybe separate those out so we can pull the grants out of the revenue so we can compare actual tax revenues to tax revenues without grant impacts?
Yeah, so we do that, and so these are the rolled up financials, and then if you look at the financial report that backs up this report, those are broken out by category, but going forward, we can break out our taxes by type and show you guys that in a graph as well.
That'd be great, thank you. Any other questions? Glenn?
Yeah, I'd like to request that on our expenditure graphs that we not, or at least separate out transfer ins and outs from the actual expenditures so that we can see the real effect. I'm more concerned generally about expenditures since transfers in and out are fund adjustments more than they are money out the door. So if we could show that either separated or just remove the transfers, whichever one makes most sense to you. And I appreciate all the extra data that you've given here this time, so thank you for that. I think it's very helpful. We're getting into the right area to be able to do some analysis. I think, though, now that you've started to address, actual collection dates versus when the city realizes it as revenue, I think we need to have real consistent clarity on labeling those charts, because it's real easy to pick one out of the pack and start analyzing it and say, oh, rats, that's not actual collections, that's when the city collects it, right? So I would just ask that we really develop some consistent labeling so that we don't get off in the wrong direction in analyzing data. But thanks for all the extra work on this, appreciate it.
For sure, and we'll split those transfers out and transfers in to give a better picture of where we're actually at on true expenditures.
Hello, everyone. Board, Kathy, Alderman, Alderwoman, Mayor. All right, so today I am presenting on 3 items that for the Branson Convention Center for 2026. These projects offer new revenue streams as well as aesthetics for our food and beverage operation. The purchase of performance staging, which is commonly outsourced piece of equipment for over 20 events per year. Install a coffee shop with Wi-Fi technology in an underutilized portion of the venue, and purchase new flatware to replace old branded pieces. Together, these investments will create new revenue opportunities for the venue and service the needs of our clients. So the first item that we're requesting is performance staging at a cost of $350,000. The venue currently lacks this as a common piece of equipment that events tend to need. Like I said, we currently have about 20 of events right now that cross-rent this from a different source. And then this is obviously a loss of revenue opportunity for the convention center. If we were able to purchase this item, we would have a more efficient event planning process, eliminating a third-party vendor for our client to have to work with. It'll also make us very competitive against our comp set because I know that they already have these pieces. The average rental cost for about a 40 by 60 stage is about $4,500. So with the current events that we have that cross-rent this, our ROI is about 3.8 years. And that is not including any new events that we get that would need this stage. The second item is something I'm really excited about. It's the BCC Coffee Shop. So we currently, Alderman Schultz, you had asked last time about our survey scores and how we can continue to get those to increase. And one of the items is our lack of permanent food outlets. We currently only have the 2 permanent concession stands in the exhibit hall, so we have to set up a lot of remote stations. And this would take a currently underutilized space in the building and provide that as an option. It uses Wi-Fi technology, which is simply you tap your credit card as you go in. It notices what you take off the shelf, and then as you leave, it charges your card for those items that you take. So it is something that we would be able to have open 24/7, and it allows guests to shop versus ordering, which is the trend in consumer spending right now. It would offer an increased revenue opportunity, and I did some very conservative estimates of about 350,000 attendees passing by that space throughout the year, including convention attendees as well as hotel guests. 15% capture of those with about $7 per cap, which brings in a gross revenue about $367,000. Our costs about 40%, and then the technology on an annual basis is about $9,000. So a year one profit, we're looking at $211,000. So almost within the first year of making this investment, it would be paid back. And obviously, this would increase survey scores. And the reason that we are looking at this option is, as you know, a lot of times after 8 or 9 o'clock, there's not an option to just go and grab a bag of chips or soda or something like that. And this would provide that service for the guests. And so this is the current space as it is now. Again, it is an underutilized space. Right now, we have some soft seating furniture and tables there for people to sit and have a conversation. And this is what the product would look like after the investment. So it would, the technology also would allow us to control inventory, so we would get a notification set based on a standard that we have that an item is running low. We would get an email or a text notification and would allow us to go and refill that item. It also comes with a self-serve coffee bar, so all of the coffee drinkers in the world will be able to go and make their own coffee, and we can also have space to sell some retail items as well. And the last item is refreshing our flatware. We currently have a data design with Old Management Company logo. It is currently almost 20 years old. The new look would freshen up our Ozark food theme full circle and reduce confusion on this food service provider. And that cost is about $75,000. So you can see the new design is in the upper left corner and the old data design is in the bottom right corner. And so we believe that this would just bring our full Ozark vibe that we're doing with our food service full circle. And this is actually a really cool pattern that's being requested by some bigger stadiums and things like that. So it would, the design would wear well and look good with all kinds of event activity. So the performance staging, as I mentioned, is $350,000. The coffee shop, $250,000. The flatware refresh is about $75,000 for a total of $675,000. Our available capital balance as the end of March 31st, and for those of you that don't know, we are able to put 4% of our gross revenue every month into a capital reserve account through the management agreement. So we are looking at about $220,000 added to that account over the year here in 2026. Internally, I do like to keep about $250,000 in that account as a minimum, just in case for emergencies. So my request is an additional funding of $600,000. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, any questions from the audience? Glenn?
Sorry, I wasn't quick enough there, Mayor. Could you go back to your first capital slide there, please? Yeah, so this one.
Sorry, oops, my
yeah,
apologies. There we go.
You were there. There you
Yeah.
are. So for this one, I get the math of how you get the ROI. What about the staff here to assemble, and usually those have to be certified for safety's sake and all that? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we have staff on, our director of operations actually came from an arena, and so he has experience setting this type of staging. There's no certification for setting the staging, but the product that we're looking at is Stage Right, and they do, it's a very popular staging system. It's used in quite a few venues. I've had it in my last 2 venues, but they do have training available to show people how to set it and things like that. But this is a very common stage setting, or a stage system. It's fairly easy to install as well, but the staff is ready to be able to install this.
I'm thinking more of the liability
I know.
issues, you know, because you do hear of those things collapsing when they're not installed correctly and so on, so.
Yeah,
And
this
then-
one's pretty, I mean, it's pretty intuitive because it basically has your support system, and then it has what are called locators, and they kind of look like fingers, and the stage pieces drop onto those fingers, so it would be very off balance and wonky if you didn't install it correctly.
Then on your food service coffee shop area, is that the complete installed cost? Electric work, plumbing, the
Yep.
whole 9 yards?
It's all of it, including the first year of the technology as well.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good questions.
No one.
Alex?
I might have missed this, ma'am, but did you say exactly where the coffee shop was going to be located within the convention center?
Yeah, so it's right at the top of the escalators. If you come off of the Sycamore Street by the ballroom, right as you go up the escalators, it's that area right to the right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. To the right. If you're going down, it's to the left. The other right.
The other
yeah.
right. Any other questions from the board?
So currently, clients are just out renting these stage risers from a third party, and y'all are just out of the picture completely this, okay.
Yep.
Okay. We're not taking any action on this. So thank you very much, Angie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, wait, do I need, because I'm asking for money, do I need action?
Didn't see
No?
anything. Are we voting on this?
No? All right, well, I'm good with that, too.
Apparently you wanted us to vote on this.
No?
Okay.
Thank you.
You'll be back and ask for money next time. Thank you, Angie. Thanks, Angie.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill Number 6670, an ordinance approving payment of incentive fees to ASM Global, formerly SMG, Branson Convention Centers Management Company, in accordance with the terms of the management services contract.
So you've heard the first reading of Bill 6670. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. We'll get a staff report from Allison.
Good evening once again. Our agreement with ASM Global provides an annual incentive fee which may be awarded upon the attainment of certain performance criteria. The criteria is broken down into 6 different categories that's weighted at 20% each. Those 6 categories are customer and client satisfaction, completion of goals and objectives, improved operating and financial condition, responsiveness, ingenuity and creativity, and feedback from the Chamber and the Hilton. This year, the maximum incentive fee that they could be awarded is $163,860. And after reviewing the criteria, we are recommending to award the entire incentive fee of $163,860 to ASM Global. Are there any questions?
Any questions on the board?
I have one, sir.
Oh, yes, Alex.
If you could, ma'am, I was looking through the survey results, and the scoring model calls for 10% of the assessment being related to the Chamber and the Hilton surveys. And reviewing that, it's not, just help me understand, are we aiming, I guess as a board, for the qualitative nature of those surveys or their numerical value? Because when you run the gambit on that, it ends up being an average of 87%. So I guess my thought is there's some things in there that would say there's room for growth. And so I'm seeing if anybody wants to entertain the discussion that being that there's room to grow, should we look at that in the incentive? I'll be more forward-leaning. I guess I'll based on that, I'm moving to amend the incentive to reflect an 87.2% result on the surveys, which would be an incentive of $14,288.59 on that line item only on the total incentive, which is approximately $2,000 or so short of what it was detailed in the report.
Yeah, you
Second.
want to go through that again, Alex, please?
Yes, so based on the survey results being 10% of the incentive, and you look at the survey results themselves, if you were to just run the amounts of points awarded by each body, so the Chamber and the Hilton Group, their incentive, if you were to run the mathematical value of it, it comes out to be about 87%. So with that, I took that bottom number for feedback from Chamber/Hotel Group, applied 8.7% as opposed to 10%, which reduces 16,386 to 14,288.59. Just annotating that there's room for growth there, because when you dig through the report, there's a couple threes, a couple fours. The parking garage called out for a couple of things, and just I think it's just reflective of it's a really good job across the board, and that's why the feedback's isolated to the survey, just so that we're giving credibility to those people taking the time to fill out the survey. And I made a motion to modify that 10% incentive to 14,288.59, which would line up with the feedback given in the survey.
Second.
I believe Alderman Cooper seconded before. Is that
that
no, you did not? Okay, I'm just kidding. Got it. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the alderman?
Just for clarity, we're talking about, now that we got the chart up there, is that the bottom number?
Yeah.
The very bottom one, the 16,386 that's being modified?
That's correct. This is purely focused on the feedback from the Chamber and the Hotel Group to be respectful of their input. Since it's part of the equation, I felt like we should take that into account.
So
Why does
Alex,
this
how-
graphic then say 100%?
It's 100%. We base this on prior years. So what we've done through prior years, we've taken the average from the Chamber and the Hilton, but this is always brought to the Finance Committee before it's brought to the board. And every year, the Finance Committee has given the full amount of the incentive and not reduced it based on scores for the Chamber and the Hilton and not averaged it out. We always end up amending that to a full 100%, and that's why that's at 100%, because that was what we've done the last 3 years based on Finance Committee recommendation.
Oh, okay, so this isn't the actual survey results, this is what the recommendation is?
This is the total recommendation based on prior years and everything. And so we can, if you have the spreadsheet up, you can change that bottom number to 87%.
Well,
like
before we
Alex is
do,
recommending.
Alex, how did you come up with the difference?
Yes, sir. So when in preparing for the meeting, you pull the survey results out. It's a series of 7 questions per organization. So the Chamber had 7 questions, the Hilton had 7 questions. A score of 1 to 5 is awarded, and when you add up the total amount of questions, points possible, it's 90 points possible. After running the math on that, it comes out to 87%, and so I took 8.7%, which then it prorates the 10% incentive down from 16,386 to 14,288.59. It's purely mathematical. It's purely their input. There's no, and that's why I asked at the very beginning if the board was more in line with a qualitative assessment or looking at it quantitatively. And I felt like since there was, one of the questions was, how would you rate the management of the organization by ASM Global? And a score was awarded of 3. So I felt like there's room for growth. I mean, the other quantitative things speak for themselves, like economic impact. I just want to be respectful of, if we're going to make that part of the assessment, then we should recognize that those weren't 5s across the board.
Yeah, it's been discussed in the past about maybe either not including the lodging portion of that or giving it a different weight.
And I would be receptive to that if that was the general direction we were going, but since it's the agreed upon procedure and we were asked to review this based upon what was given to us, then that's the way I'm operating until we, as a group, amend that formally.
You're just saying as of now, that number didn't meet that threshold and adjusting it mathematically.
And I'd be receptive to modifying that in the future if we felt like that wasn't the intent. But I'm going off the rules that we've adopted for this meeting, for the incentive at this point until we change it.
Okay. And I can see that. Kathy, I would like to put that on the list of readdressing that if we can. Any other comments or questions from the board on this motion? Glenn?
Do you know, Allison, offhand, what, other than this immediate past year, how have we treated this in prior years? Or how long has this been in place?
So the prior 2 years that I've looked at, we have done it at 100% regardless of the scores for Chamber and the hotel group. Their scores have increased over the last few years with the Hilton and everything and the scores that we're getting back. But the previous 2 years that I reviewed, they've gotten 100% of that incentive fee, even though the feedback didn't equal 100%.
So even in prior years, it was lower than this year. So
Yeah.
it's been trending up.
It has been. They have done a better job.
But we actually haven't used that in calculating their,
We haven't. And like I said, we usually bring this to the Finance Committee before you guys and then recommend it to you guys based on what the Finance Committee is recommending. And it's been their recommendation every year to give the 100%.
what about the other categories then? Is something similar done in those other categories? They really don't add up to 100%?
So none of them are 100%, right? Like they're not like, I mean, they're blowing everyone out of the water and doing an amazing job, right? But like no one scores 100%, right? When we're trying to give someone constructive criticism. And they got really good criticism and they have all of their metrics, which Angie has provided to us, which was in your packet today on everything. But we do it based on the metrics and that they're increasing every year, right? So that they're not a decrease in revenue or they're not overexpending or anything. And so their metrics are improving and then that's why you see the 100% in these categories is because every year since Angie has taken over, we've seen an increase in these metrics. So therefore, we've awarded them 100% of these fees in the past, and their metrics are only increasing since the original time we gave them 100. So they've continued to get 100%. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm kind of thinking the way that I think the mayor's thinking. I wonder if it's time for us really to review the scoring package and put more incentive in there rather than just saying, oh, okay, you get it. Actually give them the stretch goals in the calculations so that they can actually exceed, what they expected to reasonably obtain. And it's almost as if we should take the last year and say, okay, here's your baseline for next year, right? And then if you go beyond that, which Angie's doing year after year, which I think is fantastic, then they get actually beyond what we would have been able to offer for the incentive. So I just think I'd rather see that kind of system than, just bumping it up to 100% each time, and then it's not terribly meaningful that we survey everybody and then say, well, okay, we'll just forget that.
Everybody gets a trophy.
And that's
It just doesn't
Everybody
feel
gets a
right. So
trophy.
now I understand what the alderman's talking about in terms of the calculation, and I guess in principle, I'd support that notion.
Artie?
Yeah, Angie, on the other criteria, how do they rank instead of 100%?
So they're ranking higher, so it's not like a percent score on any of those, it's just metrics over the prior year and how their metrics are increasing is what we get provided, and they're increasing their metrics on everything that we have, so that's why they're getting 100%. So it's not really, that's not like we can score at 100% like you kind of can the survey, right, because it's out of a certain amount of points. That's just, we're taking those satisfaction surveys, taking them, reviewing them, averaging them out based on what the feedback that we're getting, and saying this is an improvement over last year. So if they didn't have an improvement, then they wouldn't be getting the incentive fee. So, and these are listed out in the contract, by the way, with ASM Global that we originally signed, which will be up for bid at the end of the year, where we can amend the contract and add anything to it before we go out to bid for these services again.
That's great. Any other questions, comments? Any questions, comments from the audience? Board's ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Oh,
So to clarify, we're voting on the amendment.
on the amendment, yes. Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. So any discussion on the bill itself as amended?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say again, thanks to Angie and her team, because I think they're just knocking it out of the park. And if we can figure out a way to put even more incentive on top of that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, they're doing great. Okay. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill Number 6671, an ordinance approving the second addendum with Southwest Missouri Council of Governments, SIMCOG, for comprehensive planning services and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
So you've heard the first reading of Bill 6671. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report from Mark. Hello, Mark.
All right, thank you, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the board. Madam Administrator, thank you for having me. I'm actually really excited to be here today because we're finally able to start making progress on the comprehensive plan. And I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you that we actually got started on this particular project in November of 2024 when your board approved the original contract with SIMCOG in order to start updating the community's 15-year plan. So with that said, to start, I'd like to just give you a quick recap of how we got here today. There's numerous different efforts that have been done, different research, data collection, mapping, et cetera, that has been done in order to get a foundation of data so we can start analyzing. Other things, such as the formation of the Comprehensive Planning Committee, as well as hosting 4 of those Comprehensive Planning Committee meetings. There was also the review and analysis of the 2030 Community Plan Audit. We also looked at a variety of different suitability analysis things in the mapping. But most importantly, we focused quite a bit on the public input. We had a public input meeting. We had 7 different stakeholder outreach meetings. We had a public survey that was completed, as well as other ad lib kind of meetings when we went to, for example, the community center for different information. We went to National Night Out to seek information, all in an effort to get a feeling for what is the community's values, what's their desires. You can actually find a variety of different reports that summarizes a lot of this data on the Comprehensive Plan webpage. So if you go to bransonmo.gov/plan and go to the Document Center, you can see, for example, you can see the snapshots of the reports on the screen. But what I would like to say is that I'm especially happy that phase 1 work was a very transparent process because it was able to help encapsulate what is really important to this community. Truly, Branson is a unique and special place, so how do we encapsulate that in a plan? One particular example I'd like to share with you today is there was a question on the community survey that asked, what are, what are the important policy ideas in order to shape decisions for the community and giving the public an opportunity to provide what are those values that shape those public policies? The top 4 answers were family-oriented, friendship, faith and religious freedom, and fun and entertaining. I think you'd all agree that these are all things we've heard at the public forum over and over again, but all things that aren't traditional planning aspects. But yet, nonetheless, those are important things we need to plan for when we start updating the plan, which is why the transparent process of including oversight by the Comprehensive Planning Committee is all the more important. The board also approved Addendum 1 to the SIMCOG contract on July the 2nd of 2025, which clarified language to specifically highlight that the city would be solely responsible for selecting the third-party consultant that would help us develop and finalize the plan. Since that time, and since last time I addressed the board, we've been hard at work at looking at developing an RFP, released that, reviewed and scored those responses, and we had an opportunity to have a unanimous decision on who those top 3 firms were. Once we looked at those top 3 firms, we interviewed them, and it was clear, head and shoulders, that the top firm would be the best to work with. They were able to experience a vast amount of experience working throughout the communities, throughout the United States, and clearly we're able to exhibit they'd be the best to help us with the city. In order to fully make the plan the best that it can be and utilize their services and experience, we're presenting to you today ultimately what I'm asking you to consider is addendum 2 to the contract, which would include additional $49,000 in city funds to match what I would like, and pleased to announce that the SIMCOG was able to vouch for the city to get an additional $95,000 in CDBG dollars to work on this particular plan. So that $49,000 would be a match to that. Should the addendum be approved and favorable to your board tonight, city staff would immediately commence working with that third-party consultant to affirm the conditions we found in phase 1. Once officially on board, the consultant would help the city start crafting a plan for the future of the community. Major themes to build out the city's vision will be developed, allowing work on goals, objectives, and action steps needed to achieve the community's vision. The consultant particularly would help the city with scenario and build-out planning, consider various different options for the future. Throughout the process, as was focused on phase 1, public input would be instrumental. We'd be holding multiple public meetings and workshops. We'd have additional online surveys. We'd have additional focus groups, as well as reviewing of the draft plan would be key objectives of the consultant. I'm especially excited to work with this particular consultant because they were able to utilize their experience to say that action-oriented plans are the most important plans, not just general plans that provide basic instructions for the community, but really specific things and how we actually go about achieving them. So in conclusion, as I mentioned in November of 2024, we're operating this almost like a three-legged stool, where staff, community leaders, public stakeholder groups will be able to work in conjunction with our regional partners at SIMCOG and rely on their resources, as well as the third leg, which would now be the third-party consultant, and rely on their vast experience working throughout other communities to see what has worked and what has not worked in other communities, and how does that fit the uniqueness of Branson, so we all can hold each other accountable. So, with that said, I would appreciate your time and consideration with this matter, and you can always stay up to progress with our plan at bransonmo.gov/plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any aldermen have any comments or questions? Alex?
Sir, do you know, I didn't hear it, but where do you envision the Comprehensive Plan Committee's role in working with this third party? And I'll preface the question. It's, when I heard the alderman at the time talking about the spirit and intent of moving forward from Community Plan 2030, we don't want to lose who we are in the process, our core values, and having people that aren't from here writing that plan. And so what is the reasonable expectation that the highly competent committee that was put together will be actively involved in the process with this third party?
I do appreciate your question because I actually did not specifically highlight that, but it's a very good question because certainly when I was mentioning about how public input would be critical in phase 2 of this particular project, the Comprehensive Planning Committee is the essence of that. It's the one that's going to hold the consultant, it's going to hold the staff accountable to making sure that those values we learned in phase 1 will hold true when we develop the action steps in phase 2. And we will be able to have multiple meetings. In fact, one of the major steps I'd like to do as soon as we get particularly the consultant on board is actually scheduling our next Comprehensive Planning Committee meeting so we can bring everybody up to speed and we can get to work.
And just a follow-up to that, just to be fully transparent with you, what reasonable expectation is the board going to know who the third party is so that we know what that organization is comprised of, where are they housing? I mean, what is their disposition? Because one of the critiques of Community Plan 2030 was it was written by an organization that didn't capture the spirit and values of Branson, Missouri. And so I just, in good conscience, can't not ask the question just to make sure that we're not going to recreate Community Plan 2030.
Sure, no, I certainly appreciate your question and understand that that is one major reason why we wanted to make this three-legged stool, is because we wanted to be able to hold this group accountable. We wanted to make sure we understood what the values, the important things are for the future building of the vision of the community. So what I would like to do is, if the board is agreeable, if you would like it, I'd be happy to share the response to the RFP. I'd be happy to share the contract that SIMCOG plans on approving with the consultant, which would highlight all the suite of services they would potentially be doing. But ultimately, it goes back to your original question is ultimately, we're going to rely on the staff and the comprehensive planning committee to hold that particular firm accountable to what is important to our city.
And I appreciate that. And just one last thing for me, I don't want to monopolize on the time. Just some honest feedback from that committee, which I have the pleasure of serving on over the past 18 months or so. They don't know or necessarily feel that their input has been heard or implemented. So we have to be able to have the trust and confidence that as we move forward, they know that they're going to be involved and that the results are actually being applied. Because at the end of the day, as the citizen sitting out in the audience, I heard, hey, we don't want to recreate the 2030 plan. And I also hear that it touches every single thing that the Planning Commission looks at. It drives all strategic conversations within the community. So I think it deserves the utmost. And I'm not saying it's not. I just want to be clear that the Comprehensive Planning Committee knows beyond a reasonable doubt that we are not going to spend this much taxpayer money and end up with a 2026, 2027 version of Community Plan 2030.
Point well taken.
You have not just a reasonable expectation of that, you have a for sure expectation of that. So we've been really clear, the need to bring on this additional consultant at this point in time has been due to, frankly, the bandwidth of SIMCOG's team and being unable to capture and execute on some of the final, most critical points of any community comprehensive plan, which is, what is your action plan? Otherwise, these things notoriously in my career sit on shelves. They never get looked at again. Most of the time, it's several $100,000 at a minimum that's spent to put a plan like this together just so people can feel good and check the box and say, I did a plan. That's not how we're rolling this deal. This is going to be a realistic, executable, actionable plan with metrics. And that's something that I'm really excited about, bringing this professional team on to kind of wrap it all together. And you'll have all the eyes of the community, the Comprehensive Plan Committee, not to mention the greater community as a whole, because we'll certainly be rolling this out to people that don't have the opportunity to sit in on those meetings. So I appreciate you guys paying such close attention to this, because it means a lot to us.
Any other? Glenn?
At the risk of sounding like I'm piling on, and I'm not anything contrary to what our city administrator just said, but just to kind of underscore the previous points, I was extraordinarily disappointed in SIMCOG's performance in this process. Extraordinarily disappointed. They came to us in the beginning with facts that weren't even our city's facts. We got templates where they didn't even scrub them to get rid of their prior clients' names. It was just thing after thing that, you look at it and say, come on, guys, this is what you're supposed to be doing for a living. I hope we're not coming anywhere close to that with the new consultants, because I'll be equally verbal with that group, even if we end up throwing the whole plan out because they did such a horrible job. I don't want to see that. I want to see success. I'm part of the committee, and I'm continued to serve in that committee. But SIMCOG has to understand they really blew it, in my opinion, and so they've got a ways to go to make sure that the new consultant does the job.
Yep. Ruth?
Thank you, Mark, for the presentation tonight. I'm looking forward, as a committee member, to move forward, not looking back, but move forward, so that we can accomplish all that we all stand behind as a city and our community.
Thank you, Ruth. Anybody else? Hearing none. Any input from the audience?
I, too, am on the planning committee, and I agree wholeheartedly with everything Alderman Schultz said. What is the name of this consulting firm? Is it a secret, or, why? I didn't hear the name of the firm.
I don't know if we're at liberty to say that yet because of the contractual bidding process that we're going through with SIMCOG, is that right? But as soon as we're given the permission to release that name, we'll
But
do something about it.
do we get the name before they obligate the money?
I don't know if the name's going to matter, Gary, because nobody's going to know this firm off the top of their head tonight necessarily. But we're not trying to hide anything.
Okay.
We're
No,
just
no,
trying to be sensitive.
I didn't say you
to
were.
that. Yeah.
I just I was very disappointed when I went to that first meeting, got the stuff SimCog handed us and looked at. It was honestly a total waste of time, and it got my mind in the wrong mindset. And I hope this new consultant's going to turn things around.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else in the audience? Hearing none. Any other comments from the board?
Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, my comments were directly related to SimCog. I didn't want to make it appear as if I was throwing Mark under the bus here. It was truly SimCog's fault, their issues, and Mark worked hard to get them to straighten it out after those first couple of meetings, but even then, it was kind of, so.
So we're voting on this, and are we voting to approve the additional 49,000?
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may add, this was budgeted in the 2026 budget, so the funds are.
Say it again, Mark.
This was budgeted in the 2026 budget, so the funds are there. I apologize, I did not mention that.
Okay,
The motion is to approve the second addendum to
Okay.
the contract with SimCog.
okay. So it's time to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it.
Your Honor, this is the first reading.
Thanks,
bill-
Mark.
Bill number 6672, an ordinance approving the facility use agreement with Ballparks of America LLC for FOS Productions LLC for access to certain buildings and common areas of Ballparks of America and authorizing the mayor to execute the documents related thereto.
For the first reading of Bill 6672, do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
A motion second, staff report from Solon.
All right, so this item is one that we were approached. Currently, the Ballparks of America have a ground lease with the city of Branson. They occupy the big ballpark facility with the red roof on it. And so we have an agreement with them for rent. And so they pay us a certain amount. They came to us. Our current agreement says that if they want to sublease any of that space, which there's, I think, plenty of it to sublease. I'll let Paul speak to that a little bit more, but if they ever want to sublease it, they have to come to the city to get permission. So that's what is before you tonight, is a proposal to allow them to, basically bless them to have a sublease with another tenant. And then with that being said, I'll let Paul or any of the subtenants, the proposed subtenants, come up and give any presentations that they may have.
Solon. And thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you guys for a couple of minutes. I'm going to put a hat on because I wear a lot of hats. An attorney by day, we own the ballparks by night, I say, or when we can get to that type of work. And Ballparks of America it's been incredible for the last 6 years. And I appreciate the support that we've had from the city. Appreciate what we've been able to do for the city. We do about $25 to $30 million in economic impact for the city every year, and we bring some folks, as Clay has seen, from all over the world. I mean, we literally bring them from all over the world, and if you haven't had that experience in late July and early August of getting over to the ballpark and seeing these kids that we have come and the pure joy that they have when they come from another country and see Branson, it's amazing. One of the challenges we have, and we knew we would have this when we took this on in 2020, is we took on 270,000 square feet of really, really old buildings. I mean, really old buildings. And we took on some serious deferred maintenance from the folks who had it before us. I mean, they had let the place deteriorate pretty badly in 2019 to the point where we've put $3.5 million from the owner's money into the facility over the past 6 years. We use about 170,000 of that 270,000 square feet for our operations, from everything from the baseball operation to housing the boys, to feeding the boys, to feeding the parents, to some entertainment on site. adding some more entertainment. We're adding a glow golf experience this year. Lots of fun stuff. But what we haven't figured out is how to take this to be a 10 to 12-month facility rather than a March to September 1st facility. And that's why I'm here today. I met some really incredible guys, Derek Moore and Casey Campbell, who are sitting back here, who they listened to my pitch. Let's do something seasonal in October, November, December, a little bit in September. We'll probably go towards Labor Day. And let's turn this into a 10-month facility. Let's also look at bringing a different audience to town that will spend their money, that will stay in our hotels, and will bring more economic impact. So they said yes, but the biggest thing I told them is you've got to come see these buildings first, because these are not good buildings. I mean, they're talking about going into two of our not currently used, not leased buildings that don't even have fire suppression at the moment. And we told them, you're going to have to pay. If you come and do this, you're going to have to pay to build it out. We don't, in our operational funds, have the ability to both run Ballparks of America and build out these old buildings for you to be able to run your seasonal attractions. And they said, okay, let's do it. Let's figure out a way. So they've already done the work to figure out what's needed on fire suppression for the buildings. They've already figured out the work and have met with the planning and zoning, the planning folks here on what's going to be needed to put their attractions into place. They are ready to go this September if we can get approval from you guys. And I'm excited. I'm excited for what they're going to do. They are first-class guys. They've blown me away. I mean, so much that we are actually contracting out our entertainment side of what we do, our escape rooms, our laser tag, and our glow golf to their company to run those as well, because they've impressed me so much, so that my staff can focus on what we do well: food, hospitality, baseball, softball, those things that we need to be great at. And these guys can use their database of 300,000 folks in the Midwest to come and do our entertainment and to do these events in the fall. So what we're here asking for from the city is just, you can approval of the lease. That is not a huge issue, but there is a small ask that we have made to do the same thing you did for us when we put $3.5 million in and say, if you're going to put your own money into this project, we're going to give you a slight abatement of the money, only dollar for dollar of what you put in, of what you owe. And that's an abatement off of the percentage rent that exists in that lease. So that's what we've asked of this board, is to approve that modest abatement for a short period of time. They've committed to be there for 6 years. That abatement runs out after that 6 years. They plan to be there longer. At least that's what Derek has told me, if he's going to put this kind of investment into this community. And I'll tell you how much of an investment these two men have made. They both have bought houses in this community, one here in Branson and one over in Reed Springs, since we've had this conversation, because they are committed to be down here and to do this. So I'm excited to bring this to you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions. They'll be glad to stand up and answer any questions if you have it. But what I will tell you is, right now, time is of the essence if we're going to get this done. They want to be open the second week of September. There's a ton to do, and it may be inappropriate to ask. You could say, Paul, no way. But if there's a way to do a second reading today and get this approved today, I would love that, because they're ready to have the fire suppression people in before the next meeting. They've got them lined up. They're ready to do it. They're ready to go. So that's my ask. I'll answer any questions that you have. I'll take off my hat to be respectful.
Paul, thank you for that. Are you at liberty to share what the concept is?
Absolutely. So for September and October, they're going to do a haunted house. They're going to do an extremely family-friendly haunted house. The first thing I did after I talked to Derek in October is say, I want to come out and see what you're doing, because they already have one. They have one in Nixa. And if I could find a more conservative community in Missouri than Branson, it might be Nixa, Missouri. I'm not sure. But I wanted to see, is it family friendly? Because it's our brand. Ballparks of America is our brand, and we are family friendly. That is what we do. The other thing I needed to know, and this is extremely important, is will it be family-friendly enough that I can run some baseball and softball tournaments around it for people to bring their 12, 13, 14-year-old kids to do and come and do this? So Derek said, come on out. He said, but bring your daughter. So I took my 14-year-old daughter, got out of the car. The first thing I noticed is it's all families. I was amazed by the number of families that were at the event. And they were there, and they weren't, and the kids who were there who weren't with families were there, and they weren't off doing something else that could be crazy. We had a great time. My daughter had to hold my hand, and I really struggled because I don't do scary. Scary doesn't work for me. She had to tell me I was going to be okay. And then, and then she said she wanted to do the second attraction, which I was like, no, we're good. I've seen what I need. So she took me in it, and about 5 minutes through the second attraction, the lights went out, the generator went out, and I thought it was over for me. And for about 10 seconds, she had to tell me I was going to be okay, but they turned the lights back on. I made it out. And it's a fun story for us to be able to tell as she goes into high school, for us to tell for the rest of our lives. And that's what I'm about. That's the biggest thing I'm about, is to tell stories. So then, at the end of October, we're going to do a week that's a combination of holiday Christmas and the haunted house concept. If you've ever seen, the Nightmare Before Christmas type of concept. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to go into a pure Christmas holiday event. Very Christmas themed, lights, slides, all of that. They're going to do the same thing. And we're going to do that through December. And if you've ever seen, I came to Kathy with this idea 2 years ago, the Enchant concept that does that on baseball fields, we're going to do some of that. There may end up being an ice skating park, but it's going to be a complete 360 from what happened in September and October. 180, not 360. Do your math, Paul. A complete 180, and is really going to capture what we do with Old Time Christmas in Branson. And that's something Kathy knows I've been working on doing and don't have the capacity as an organization to do. We may not be able to pull that off in 26 because of the timing, but they are committed to make sure that Christmas happens in 27 and making sure the haunted house starts here. It may not be fully both buildings, but in 26.
You want to share with us the abatements that you're requesting?
Sure. So their commitment is a $300,000 build-out commitment to the facility. That's going to occur this year for the most part. There may be some that rolls over into 27, but they budgeted that. They sent me the most, I got things to learn. They sent me the most organized and detailed list of what they plan to spend in this thing that I've ever seen. And what we've asked for is we're looking at it, so the percentage rent is 3.75%, and we've asked for 75% abatement in the first 2 years, 50% abatement in the next 2 years, and 25% in years 5 and 6. So they've estimated they believe they can do revenues somewhere in the $750,000 to $1 million once they're fully up to speed. So we'd be talking about a $37,500 percentage rent on $1 million, and the 75% off of that would be $28,000 that would go back towards their initial capital commitment to be in this town. So that's the thought process.
Any aldermen have any questions for Paul?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Go ahead, Ashley.
I'm not necessarily a fan of haunted houses, and I think probably quite a few people might say that. However, I am a fan of capitalism, and I am a fan of wisdom when it comes to how to utilize space and grow. And so for that, good job and way to come up with an idea to use that space, guys.
And I will tell you, I'm not a big fan of haunted houses either, and less of a fan after I visited their place. But I'll also say the first time, and none of you guys were involved with city government here at the time that I'm aware of, but the first time in 2019 when I went and toured those buildings, my first comment to the city folks who took me there to see the ones that were not in use is, these should be a haunted house. Because they are the echoes of 45 years of Branson in those old stores. I mean, they've got some great ground to work with in those old buildings.
I was here, Paul,
Okay.
when we went through those. Anybody in the audience have any questions, comments for Paul? Chris?
I was just looking at the contract under 9A, and it says they shall not use any ticket reseller or third party for the purpose of decreasing the value of gross revenues or its obligation to pay rent. And so I'm wondering if that's a city requirement, because when we talk about capitalism, we shouldn't limit how they can promote their venue, and if they want to choose to do that, why limit them in that ability? Because if you have this in here, they're not going to be able to promote their haunted house on Branson.com or Branson show tickets or anything. I think that would be detrimental potentially to them, but I don't know if that's a city thing or they put that in the contract, so I'm just kind of curious about that.
I can answer that. So that provision was put in by the city not to prevent them from using third-party resellers. They can actually use them. The only what that says is that they can't use them to lower the amount that they have to pay for rent. So it doesn't prevent them from using them.
Basically, my commitment that I have shared with Solon, I haven't said it to any of you, but this is my commitment, is if it's revenue for this attraction, it's going into the percentage rent. I mean, we're not looking in any way to push any of that revenue around. And they have told me that the percentage rent piece is not the deciding factor for them. It matters, but it's not the deciding factor. What I'm excited about is if we get that, I'm going to get a better product out of them because they're going to be better able to afford to put the money in right now because they know the ROI.
That's right.
That makes me excited because I know for me, my brand depends on the people who I partner with. And I'm very, very cautious about who our organization partners with. Because we have built a national brand. I wore this hat and I took 36 kids under the Ballparks of America name with Branson, Missouri tags on their jerseys to Las Vegas in January, representing this community, telling them all about Branson. And it was a lot of fun. And it's exciting to get to represent this community with what we go out and do. To have teams that play under the name of Branson in all 3 of the World Series this year, not just 2. So we'll have 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds. And last year, I exercised some owner's prerogative, and I coached the 16-year-old Branson team, and we won the World Championship. We beat several teams from around the world and ended up winning the World Championship for Branson, which was a lot of fun. That was a lot of
Paul,
fun.
I'll tell you, this community is also very proud of Ballparks of America. We think it's been a great relationship.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor, I'll be, when you get to it, I'll be abstaining from the vote for conflict of interest.
Okay, fair enough. So I think we're ready for a vote.
Solon, can you just go over those, recap the ask again?
As far as the abatement goes, is it 3.75?
3.75
So-
is the percentage rent.
So the rent that they would be paying in addition to what's already being paid, they would be paying 3.75%, but we would be abating for the first 2 years, we would be abating 75% of the rent. Then the second, or the third and fourth year, it would be abating 50%. The fifth and sixth year would be abating 25%, and then after that, they'd be paying the full amount, the full 3.75% of their gross revenues.
And I want to be clear, this doesn't change what Ballparks.
I'm sorry, Paul, you need to speak into the mic, please. We have people online listening.
This does not change what Ballparks pays at all. This only impacts the company that is putting the money into this and what they have to pay as a percentage rent.
And kind of in conjunction with that, they're still paying taxes on all their stuff on top of the 3.75%. That's just a rent that the city of Branson's going to be obtaining on top of the taxes that we'll also be bringing in.
Aldermen, have any questions before we vote? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Ayes have it. Thank you, Paul.
Just wanted to clarify, is that a vote on the
Oh.
second read?
No,
I'll make a motion to have a double read for timing.
we have a motion and a second to have a double read. Any questions, comments from the board? Questions, comments from the audience? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. So Hillary, would you please read this item for the second and final read?
Your Honor, this is a final reading of Bill Number 6672, an ordinance approving the facility use agreement with Ballparks of America LLC and FOS Productions LLC for access to certain buildings and common areas at Ballparks of America, and authorizing the mayor to execute the documents related thereto.
Do I have a motion approving this final read?
So, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Discussion from the audience?
Bob's here, he may oppose this. Okay.
Oh, the second read?
Double read, Bob, you want to talk on that? Okay.
So Hillary, the final read, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Harkness?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Denham?
Yes.
Scholes?
Yes.
Williams?
Abstain.
Motion carries
Very nice.
5-1.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Paul.
We'll represent you well. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Go get them.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill Number 6673, an ordinance approving the second amended and restated cooperative agreement between the historic downtown Branson Community Improvement District and the city of Branson, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement.
You've read the first reading of Bill 6673. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report from Solon.
All right, this is as some of you know, we've had lots of meetings with the downtown CID, and finally worked out an agreement. And that's to, pay for expenses between the two parties that go on. The city provides a lot of services downtown, such as landscaping services. I was down there this morning looking at not the CID stuff, but some other things, and noticed we had 4 employees actually out doing stuff, and I was just noticing, like, around the bathrooms at Liberty Plaza, they had really nice flowers and roses planted. It looked like they had put down new mulch. So obviously we have some expenses down there. So this agreement kind of is designed to compensate the city for some of that. We also provide, in the contract, it says that the city will provide for the Christmas decorations that you all are used to seeing. The CID wanted to see that continue forward, so we've put that in there. There is one provision in there that I talked to their attorney about, and I think they communicated that to them, that we would be, we were trying to find out the cost of adding higher coverage on the liability insurance and seeing if that was going to be cost prohibitive on their landscaping lease or contract that they have with OPIs. And I think that if you guys want to amend that down to $2 million, if it makes sense, I don't know if you guys heard back on that or not, but if the $4 million requirement was too high, then, by all means, the city could go down to the $2 million. It does have some exposure to liability because the cap would be, for our immunity, would be at $3.5 million. So the question that you'd have to just answer in your head is, to keep their premium costs down, is it worth it to have that risk of potentially having a gap in insurance coverage there? And what is the likelihood of a claim exceeding $2 million? We do have a lot of contracts that are at that $2 million amount, so there's that. Otherwise, this also goes in conjunction with the extension of the CID. The CID was extended for another term of 3 years, and so obviously we needed to renew the agreement that went along with that to accommodate that, and I think the CID renewed with 90% of the vote, which there weren't very many votes, but it was still 90%. I think there were 10 votes total, which was still good. I'm glad that the community supports the CID, and so asking, I guess at this point, for the city to approve that or any amendments that they see fit.
So any members of the board have any questions or comments? Artie? Oh. Glenn?
Couple of comments. One is, as we said, even last meeting, I think we were talking about this in relation to the 76 CID. I think we have to be, as a city, very grateful to the CID for what they bring to the city, not only in the things that people directly associate them with, the very valuable trolley service downtown that all of our businesses have spoken highly in favor of, but all the other activity that they do downtown. They've been very active in the new festivals downtown, taking leadership roles there. I think really even in terms of coalescing the downtown businesses, they've taken major step forward. And they've also done, over the years, even the recent years, some very significant voluntary financial contributions to the city. When we look at the Albury bathroom project, the brand new lights in the streetscape project, those kind of things, I think they've just done a fantastic job of stepping forward and showing that they're part of the city and that they want the downtown district to be highly successful. They've also taken over the Christmas decorations within their district. The city had Christmas decorations that were aging out, and the CID stepped in and replaced all those with LED-based ones and have seen to all the maintenance of those. Excuse me. So, the list kind of goes on and on and on in terms of, I think, what the CID has done for the district and for the city as a whole. So my comment would be in relation to all of this, just as I said with the 76 CID, but even more so here, I just do not feel that the structure of this contract is appropriate, that after all that generosity of the CID on a voluntary basis, and no indication that that's going to stop, that then we mandate from them payments that can amount up to 7% or $120,000 of payments to the city when they're already demonstrating generosity beyond that, and that they clearly understand that when they ask the city to take on extra services, that they'll step forward and fund those services as they've done it every last time. So from my perspective, what I'd like to do is ask that we postpone this action until our next aldermanic meeting, regular meeting, and direct the city staff in that time to delete section 3.5, negotiate that with the CID, and also to clear up the issue at the same time of the liability insurance that the attorney said was still kind of outstanding, to come to terms with the CID as to what they see as best in that regard as well. That's my motion.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any alderman wishing to discuss this?
In the contract, is it currently a $2 million or $4 million liability?
The one that we have in place right now, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, the one for today?
Yeah.
It's at four, we had worked out that it would be at $4 million, but somehow between that time, I got contacted by our parks director, and she said, hey, I think that maybe her and Chris had been chatting, and it might have sounded like that might have been hard for Opies to find out. And during the time that I was over there and over here, I was getting a message from our parks director saying that.
Solon, the question is, what is it today, before this changes?
It's at $4 million, and it sounds like it would have cost them in premiums around $320 more in the contract.
Annually.
How much more?
$300.
$320 more.
Oh, well, that's not, okay.
But you have to keep in mind the contract's only like $17,000 or something, so that's, it's not a small portion of the contract.
Well, that was my reason. How much more of would the premium be at $4 million versus $2 million? You're saying it's only $320 for the year?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm getting conflicting reports on that. Can somebody from the city respond to that?
Microphone do you want
Go
me on
ahead.
this one?
Yep.
Mayor and board and Ms. Stepp, my name is Greg Dorman. I'm the attorney that represents the Community Improvement District. Good to see you all. And so on the existing cooperative agreement, well, it's basically in the form, near the form it was in 2006. It's been amended once or twice along the way, but this insurance requirement isn't in the existing cooperative agreement. But the Community Improvement District agrees. You've extended the Community Improvement District another 3 years. The cooperative agreement should be updated. And the district has no objections to including insurance requirements for a landscaper that the district hires who's working within the city rights of way. And yeah, Mr. McGee already summarized this. We just talked, and they wanted or Mr. McGee and the city, her city policy, I think, was looking to have $4 million of coverage to ensure that the sovereign immunity exposure would be fully covered by insurance. The district's position on that is if that's the city's policy, then that's fine. Obviously, we're going to pay more for the landscaping contract. We don't know, if we haven't heard directly from the current vendor what exactly that number is. I agree and hope it would be something pretty minimal, but you just don't know with small businesses. And our other point would just be if the contract is going to, if those contract requirements are going to be the same for all city vendors within the rights of way, then sure, the district
Yeah.
should be doing the exact same thing. But if there would be lesser liability coverage for the city's vendors, then the district would want, basically just to be in line with where the city is on comparable types of vendors. So
Sure.
does that answer your question, Mr. Shaw? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from the board? I wanted to comment to Glenn. When I look at these cooperative agreements, and we're just talking about downtown, if downtown has additional expenses for the city to cover that the city doesn't cover in other CIDs or in other parts of Branson, that is, I think, out of balance and not fair to all other Branson residents. So if there's any additional expenses, and 76 CID is a great example, the amount of additional expenses for 76 CID is a huge amount of money. But the city's not paying that amount for all other parts of Branson. That's why there has to be an expense reimbursement. And I feel the same with downtown. We all love downtown. We think it's a jewel. But for the city to pay extra expenses that we don't do, that the city doesn't do in other parts of the city, there has to be a reimbursement. So if we're going to reduce any, if we're going to exclude any expenses in this cooperative agreement, then I think it needs to be tied to excluding services also. So I think we have the insurance part covered. Glenn, in your motion, were there things other than the insurance that you wanted to delay this on?
Yes, I said to delete section 3.5 and to finalize negotiations on insurance.
And section 3.5 is what? I don't have it in front of me.
It's entitled City Enhanced Maintenance Activity Contributions, and it is paragraphs A through D.
So you're asking to to remove 100% of city reimbursement for the services the city does downtown.
I'm asking to remove this section from the contract.
Is that what that section covers, Glenn? Can we put that section up on the board, please? We don't need to play this.
It's page, starts on page 7 in the contract at the bottom.
Okay, so you're wanting to delete all of section 3.5.
Correct. However, I'm not doing that as an amendment on the fly here, because I believe there's value in the attorneys discussing that and coming back with a final version of how that would look.
Okay. Kathy, you had something?
I just am looking for really defined sideboards here from the board. So if we are going to be removing any required contribution for the concierge services that are kind of spelled out in this agreement, are we then allowed to negotiate removal of those concierge services? Because if we don't have a way to fund those, I would imagine that would fall within the parameter and the scope of how you want me to negotiate this. I mean, at the end, we can do that, right? We can remove the trash services and the installation of the specialty Christmas lights and things like that. I'm just trying to get clarity because, so I know what we've got to work with internally.
Yeah. Just from my perspective, and I'm sure the other board members would comment, first, some of that is not the concierge service. The city already had Christmas lights. What's happened is the CID has replaced those Christmas lights with modern lights. So I don't think that's a good exemplification of what you're after necessarily. If there is something like trash pickup, my expectation would be, as the attorneys discuss the removal of this section, that if the CID sees that there's services they want to protect as a result of their relationship with the city, that they'd make that known in those contract adjustments prior to bringing it back to the board at our next meeting.
So Kathy, I think the answer was yes. If there's a expense that's going to be taken out, let the attorneys get together, get with the CID, the historic downtown CID, and negotiate what services that they want the city to cover and reimburse for those expenses. Any other questions or comments on this addendum?
Mr. Mayor, one, is this, and if I missed it, please point me to it, in the spirit of equality, since that was floated as part of the discussion, 76 CID, there was an itemized list of services that are considered to be enhanced above the norm. Does that exist for this same agreement?
I'm not sure what the question is, Alex. Does this same thing apply to 76?
No, if you recall, during the 76 discussion, we looked at the services that were, by name above and beyond the normal scope of City of Branson maintenance. Are those spelled out in this agreement, like in the 76 agreement?
They're alluded to, Alderman Williams. So Alex, or I'm sorry, Solon, did you want to expand on that?
There are a couple sections that talk about it. I think, if I'm remembering right, and the CID can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but because it's been a while since we did this. If I'm remembering right, the Christmas lights, we've been doing those, but it wasn't ever in the contract before. Is that correct?
I think, Michael, would you come up here, please? And Cindy, please be on standby. So Michael, if you can give some more breadth to the installation requirements and the cost, maybe number of lights, et cetera. We've done all this math already over the last year and a half in the conversations that we had with the CID, because we don't want to go in willy-nilly pulling a number out of thin air and just winging it, right? We know we have to do our homework on what are the extra services, especially during peak times or events that are happening in the downtown area, of which, of course, we're expecting a lot more of those going forward. And we want, I want to be really clear to members of the CID board and everybody else listening, it's in the best interest of the city to have a gorgeously clean and upkept and downtown, right? That benefits all of us. All we're saying is, in fairness to the other wards of the city, to the other businesses of the city and residents as well, is that if we're going to be providing more services than what would be usual and customary in the rest of the city, then since this political subdivision of the CID has an income source that they're taxing people on, that they should contribute some of those dollars, and we think it's a modest amount compared to collections. And we also came to that amount by using our best faith estimates on what it actually costs us to provide those concierge services. So we've got, I don't know if it's 2 full-time people that are downtown between parks and public works, that this is what they do, is they roam around downtown and keep everything perfectly clean. And let me tell you, the bathroom maintenance is quite something. And I'm not saying that the CID should pay for all that, but you don't have shoppers that are down on 76 at the Ferris wheel coming down to use the Auberry bathrooms, right? It most closely benefits the CID members. And so that was just to give you a little bit of background on the thought process behind it. It was just, how do we do this so we can be fair to Branson taxpayers and businesses that aren't in this CID and don't have that revenue source to pay for additional attention and services? And how do we do that in balance with knowing that a beautiful downtown benefits all of us? So we thought we came to a pretty fair and reasonable negotiation, but I understand some of you have a different opinion. So can you guys give a couple just quick examples, Michael, on fiscal impacts to your department?
Sure. So that's what we were tasked to do, is talk about what the costs are that we provide above and beyond. We shared out some of this information, Cindy and I did, and just an example of the downtown Christmas lights. I'm a huge Christmas fan. Many people know that about me. Love it. But that's a real impact of around 470 hours a year. And so that gets paid out of those accounts. And if you want to just say $22 an hour without benefits, you're talking anywhere from $9,000 to $10,000. Yes, we do other parts. We do take care of Branson Landing Boulevard. The city realizes the cost to redo that. We kind of worked off of their momentum and redid and put some different bulbs in there and did stuff like that. Other services that just particular Public Works, and then I'll let Cindy speak. She takes the lion's share. It used to be Public Works took care of a lot of it and had a full-time employee down there. And earlier this evening, you met that full-time employee that got an award for his great service down there. We both supplement people in and out at all different times, from movie sets to anything that's going on down there. We try to help the best to promote downtown. The last thing that Public Works does that's extraordinary, I would say, would be we go down and we blow out the sidewalks out into the center, and we take care of the trash that's there. And then Cindy's making sure that all the trash cans are cleaned out that are provided. That's something that we don't provide on 76. That's above and beyond. We don't provide that on any other street that we provide trash services. So with that being said, those are the two main things we do, and we work together very well, and we're appreciative of downtown. I truly love downtown. We're appreciative of the board, the millions of dollars you invested downtown and did the beautiful thing. We're appreciative of Chris's group, and I've met all of them, and the lighting vision that we kind of came up with, it was like, yeah, you guys got it, and you support us, and we greatly appreciate that.
Just to add to what Michael said, I think what I would describe it is enhanced services. It's just something we wouldn't do. We pick up trash 7 days a week, and so we don't even do that in our parks. We do it 3 times a week in our parks. So I think it really is enhanced services is what I would say. The gentleman that you met earlier, Emilio, he's dedicated to downtown. So that's what he does. And so we don't have employees that are just dedicated to one particular area. So I think that is enhanced, and we do work well with the downtown folks. We're very grateful for our relationship with them, and we care deeply about how things look. Just to add a few more, so when he's not down there the 5 days, we supplement that with 2 other people. So we're probably spending 50 hours a week, 7 days a week, doing those things, picking up trash every single day, taking care of the bathrooms 3 times a day, blowing off sidewalks on Thursday nights and the cigarette butts, and then we have a street sweeper who comes through there every Friday morning. Those aren't things that we normally do in all other areas, so I would describe that as enhanced. The landscaping that was described, when Solon was talking about, the CID has hired OPs to do the landscaping, which was what we were talking about with the insurance. So that has been amazing. We do landscaping as well. We plant flowers at Liberty Plaza. That's what he was talking about, some really cool plants. And then we also supply all the mulch. We've been doing that, just you all have probably noticed that we've been doing that this week. And so that's not something we typically do in other places. So these are some of the enhancements. I can go on. The fountain is another thing with the maintenance of the fountain. Michael mentioned the Christmas lights. We stain the wood decks. We take care of the trolley stop. Pavement markings are done. He didn't mention specialty signs. So I think we want to make sure downtown looks good, but I would describe it as enhanced compared to what we normally do in other areas and definitely in parks.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Michael. So, will we? Artie?
It's already been mentioned tonight about the list of the things the city would be responsible for with the 76 CID.
Yeah.
I mean, can we get an apples for apples comparison with the two to see what we're talking about there? Because I know it was an extensive list.
Actually, these are apples and bananas. Well, they are.
I think both of these cooperative agreements, like the one you're seeing before you tonight and the one from the 76 CID from the last meeting, we really took off from what was the original cooperative agreement for both CIDs. So they're both very different entities, right? Both literally and structurally, as well as just the amount of responsibility for both. And so we kind of, we went from that as our launching off point was the original agreements for this particular CID. And then fixed and cleaned up and modernized some of the language, et cetera. So that's why you don't see it listed out exactly how the 76 CID did it when they first created their CID 20-some years ago. We just kind of went from what these guys did 20 years ago. So that's why you're not seeing an identical format here. But, I didn't know that we would necessarily have to lay out all those things because we'd already negotiated that with them. And that's why when we came to the agreement, we didn't think we'd have to quantify and justify that again to you all. But if you want me to memorialize in writing some of the things that Michael and Cindy aired for you tonight, I'm more than happy to do that. I think you'll quickly see it comes to well more than $100,000 a year in extra services. And again, we're delighted to do it. We want to continue to invest, maintain, protect our investment, like I talked about on the 76 CID. When you make something beautiful, let's keep it beautiful. Let's keep it from deteriorating. So we want to do that. We just wanted to have some predictability in our budgeting to make sure we can continue to dedicate those sources there, because I know how treasured they are.
So, go ahead, Clay.
Well, I understand Glenn's ask, and I'm not that I'm for or against it. I guess my question is does the folks in the CID support Glenn's motion, or is there a problem to be, huh? Well, I'm sure they would, yeah, but
we should.
I'm just saying, he just made a motion, and they're all, I don't know if this is something they were wanting Glenn to speak on their behalf, or could we hear from one of them, or?
Love to hear from the audience.
Okay.
Greg Dorman again. And so I think part of it is, there's a provision in the CID Act, state law, that prohibits cities from decreasing the level of publicly funded services within a district compared to when the district was formed. As you get farther and farther from 2006, that gets harder and harder to probably be really specific about what that exactly means. And I think Mr. McGee and I will also agree, the Missouri Supreme Court has never really construed that particular statutory language. So we can each have our positions about what exactly that language means. But, and there are a couple of other provisions that talk about not transferring the burden of normal city services. In effect, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, from a city to a district just because a district gets formed for some special purpose. And so there is, a debate, a debate can certainly be had about exactly where to draw that line and what expenses are fair game to consider versus ones that are part of sort of baseline city services and things like that. It gets, I guess, more complicated. I think any city with a downtown area versus less densely developed areas and downtown parks versus parks in other areas spends differently because there are just different demands that go along with those. So I think, fair game for healthy debate. And so, obviously the district does have a concern about being asked to take on more regular maintenance city activities, but at some point in the discussions, we just kind of turn to a global number instead of trying to itemize each and every detail. With a couple of exceptions, one of those is the downtown business owners' input that the CID board received was very specific that they wanted to see the Liberty Fountain running. And so that was something specifically written into the agreement, just one example.
So then, would you promote approving this as written, or would you like, what's the amendment on the table? And that is to put aside 2 weeks so you and Solon could work out some of these figures.
Well, so I don't have an official position from my client because we can't have an illegal meeting and put heads together and have me poll board members to find out. So all I can really do is answer based on my best instinct of having worked for these folks for a while now. And I would say an additional 2 weeks is something I think that they will be comfortable with, just to make sure that we're getting this to a point where you all are comfortable with it in the same way that they're comfortable with it, and that's my best read.
Thank you.
So what is the other option? This goes away and the city goes, and then they just bid out whoever they want to do all these services for them?
They could. They always can.
Huh?
They always can.
Yeah. Okay.
Chris, did you have anything you'd want to share? I just want Chris, how about your personal opinion? Yeah. I know you can't speak for the board, but you can speak from Chris.
So I hope you read the resolution that we attached as part of this agreement, because that does address some of this. It was not our board that wanted to have a revised cooperative agreement. We didn't even have to have a revised one, but because the city wanted one, we were okay with working with the city. But it has not been an easy time working with them, and that was kind of stated in the resolution. And I do not think that using trash is a fair example. The downtown is a very concentrated area, and as you're getting sales tax from a lot of the people here are paying sales tax and property tax for these purposes. This CID was set up for transportation, and as this CID expanded and had more income, then we went to the city, what else can we do? We're talking about more bathroom usage. Well, the city came to us and asked if we could pay to redo the bathroom. So we paid over $40,000 for that. We've been so good to do whatever the city asks us. We asked the city if we could pay for the landscaping. We do that. We're happy to do that. And as our attorney said, it's just when that extra 2 pages of Exhibit B was added on this, we've never been required, to have different requirements on that insurance. And all we want is we'll do whatever the city does. So is the city going to require $4 million on their contracts? Well, then we're happy to do it. You see what I mean? We just want fair. But to ask us to pay for services, when you talk about 76 and some of those extra ones, they don't come and do scrape the, gum. They don't do our sidewalks. They don't, well, Clay talked about a lot of the services last time that they do at his theater. They're right out there. Our businesses have to do their own ice and everything. And when we talk about like the street sweeper, my goodness, I've lived in the downtown area 45 years almost. Those have always been downtown. So I don't think once a week, and the Christmas lights, the city paid to put up the Branson Landing Boulevard and to redo the lights. The city paid to do, the Main Street Hill. We chose, when the city quit doing the historic downtown with what the city did, we paid for all those beautiful lights. The only agreement we had was an actual resolution done with here a few years ago that the city would, if we, pay for those and we insure them, we also pay for them to be repaired. We pay all of that. And all the city agreed to do was install and put down. And the city had asked if we'd make it easy for them and leave those brackets up at all times. And so that way we couldn't have some other things on some of those poles. We did that because it was easier for the city. But the city, some of you may not know, but I know Glenn comes to all of our meetings, but we were looking at, because the city quit doing Veterans Boulevard with lights, the city had always done that before. Well, businesses came to us and wanted, can we do that? Well, we thought, well, we'll pay for lights for that too. And all that, if the city would put them up and down, well, if we're going to be penalized for doing the extra things, I'm not sure how much more we want to do. And I know we got credit for doing the events. Well, the DBBA folded, and our downtown needed those things. So a group of us came together to do that. And so, yeah, I'm putting in a lot of extra work for that, but our community's worth it. And our downtown, all of our extra money, we do to help. We had an ask that came to our public comment by somebody up here this week. Our reply was, absolutely, we'll look into doing that for the city. And I talked to somebody at the city about it so I could put a pen to that. But we're always there to serve, but we don't feel it's fair to be forced to do things when we've always done them. And to take the tax money that these hardworking people self-imposed on themselves through petition to collect that 1% to spend on their district and want to take from their percent, they're not asking you to do anything over and above. And the only reason that the fountains were written into that contract were because the city expected us to pay, 6, 7, 8% of these people's money. So we thought, well, we have to at least, you can't do a one-sided agreement. You can't take one taxing district's money to another taxing district without saying you're going to give something for it. The city didn't want to have anything in there. They just wanted to take the money. So I guess I've said enough, but I'm being honest, okay?
Chris, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
And what I didn't realize was, I think from the city's point of view and historic downtown Branson, all of these conversations should be a we. It's we, it's our downtown, right? It's not like you're downtown and we're against downtown. These conversations should all be what we can do together and what's fair for all. And it should be easy.
Well, our very last meeting, it wasn't a we, and you were on the, thing, but I was attacked for my income. It's not been a we. I would love it to be a we, because we do love our city. We serve our city, and we are going to continue with everything we do to serve our community.
Okay,
And thank you.
other than the, I think it's a state statute that says the city can't pay more in one district, right, than another, whatever that language is.
Part of the CID Act is that the city can't discriminate in the provision of publicly funded services between different parts of the city, the parts of the city outside of a district versus within.
Okay.
And, again, you're talking about trash service in a downtown area. It's an example where any city without a CID is probably spending more on the trash service in downtown area versus other areas. because
Okay,
that's where
the point I wanted to make was, other than that provision, and I'm not, yeah, I don't need to get into that, but I'm thinking of like Branson Hills as a CID, right? And we don't pick up the trash in Branson Hills. Put that aside. Other than that state regulation that says we can or can't do things, Chris, all these conversations would start with what's best for our community. And we're so proud of our historic downtown Branson. And I thought we've been showing that. No? Okay, well, we should.
Just one final thought, Mayor, and I don't want anybody to leave this with the impression that this administration or this board or the previous board had any ill will towards the downtown. In fact, I've been spending a great deal of my time recently on issues that the downtown businesses have brought to my attention, and I'll have the opportunity to thank Chris for helping to orchestrate some of that work. So I'm hopeful that through our actions that we're showing you that we care and value and treasure your contributions to this city. Understand the position that we're in from the admin side, which is we're just trying to have a balanced approach here, right? So when we're looking at if there's additional work, and it's not just trash, so I don't want people to think it's just about garbage pickup. You heard from Michael and Cindy. There was a lot of work that went into looking at, with very objective eyes and using a calculator, what exactly does this cost to the city taxpayers for us to provide this service, right? And then how do we balance that with the needs of people down on 76 or over on Gretna or over at Branson Hills through the whole rest of the city? That's all we're doing, is we're just trying to have a balancing test to make sure that other wards aren't suffering because another ward is getting extra attention above and beyond. That's all. So it's hard to do that sometimes, and it's hard to do it without, sometimes some challenging conversations. But I hope you know where our heart is in these conversations. It's always been about to do what's best for the city as a whole, and certainly downtown Branson, as you've seen by the $4.5 million investment that just went in down there, how precious downtown is to us and why it matters. So I just wanted to make sure that I got to express those final thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I was talking to Chris. Does any other board member have any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Chris and downtown board members that are here, I just want to thank you for coming and thank you for being honest. I know it's not easy. I know this can be somewhat intimidating, and so I'm grateful for you guys speaking your truth, and it's been well received here, so thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to amend this bill to state that this bill will be brought up. You want to read the?
Yeah, so the motion is to postpone and direct staff to delete section 3.5 and negotiate with the CID and finalize negotiations on the insurance.
Say that again, please.
Really? Okay. I was hoping you would say that. Motion to postpone and direct staff to delete section 3.5 and negotiate with the CID and to finalize negotiations on the insurance.
So we're renegotiating 3.5 or we're just removing it?
It was, delete was in the motion, delete 3.5, that was part of the motion to postpone. So
Okay.
it was all one motion to direct staff to go back.
And to bring it back in 2 weeks?
I did not hear that part in the motion. Was it?
I did say at our next regular meeting.
Okay. Then that as well.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Because I'll have to answer to my residential people and businesses in Ward 3. I will not be supporting this because I don't think it's a fair thing to do.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote on the amendment? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Harkness?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Denham,
No.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
The result of the vote is 5 yes, 1 no, motion carries. Your Honor, the next item is a public hearing and first reading of Bill Number 6674, an ordinance approving the preliminary plan development for the property known as the Branson Meadows, TIFF, Branson, Missouri 65616.
We'll now have an open public.
There was no motion. The motion was to postpone.
Okay. So we'll now open this public hearing and begin with a staff report from Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor, board members, city administrator, staff. Thanks for your time this evening. Tonight, I'm presenting a preliminary plan development request for the Branson Meadows TIF master plan. This request is before you following a unanimous recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission through Resolution PD 2602 with an 8-0 vote. Also present tonight and available for questions are Todd Chandler with Great River Engineering and Grant Wilkins with Philcrest Properties. Mr. Wilkins is joining us virtually this evening. I also want to note for the board that this plan development was drafted by Bill Ung, who has extensive experience drafting plan developments throughout the region and is very familiar with complex mixed-use developers and long-term master planning. The staff, the applicant team, engineers, and development representatives have been meeting bi-weekly to keep this project moving forward. Approval of this preliminary plan development helps ensure we continue identifying and working through infrastructure, design, utility, transportation, and development challenges collaboratively and proactively as the project evolves. Okay, right there, go back. Now, here we go. All right. So this request establishes the framework and governing land use regulations for long-term development within the master planned area. A preliminary PD is intended to provide flexibility while still maintaining oversight and compatibility with the city's adopted plans and development standards. This is not final site approval for individual developments tonight. Rather, it establishes the development framework and standards moving forward. The project team, the applicant, and the team members that we've been working with is Todd Chandler of Great River Engineering, David Lundstrom of Great River Engineering, Grant Wilkins of Philcrest Properties, and Lindsay Eisentraut of Russell Construction. This is a collaborative development effort with a highly experienced team that has been actively coordinating with city staff through bi-weekly meetings. The PD process allows flexibility in design while still protecting public health, safety, and welfare. It encourages innovative and coordinated development patterns that may not fit neatly within traditional zoning districts. The PD process allows the city to evaluate infrastructure, transportation, utilities, open space, compatibility, long-term economic impact, and this process creates predictability for both the city and the developer while maintaining oversight. This application satisfies the eligibility criteria outlined in Section 9448 of the Branson Municipal Code. The site exceeds the 5-acre minimum requirement. The request is consistent with Community Plan 2030. The project area is under unified control. The PD creates a recognizable public benefit through coordinated infrastructure and master planning, and the proposal allows development to occur in a logical phased manner. So the proper legal advertisements were completed in accordance with the city's requirements. Notices were published in the Branson Tri-Lakes News on April 18th, and the public hearing requirements have been satisfied. This project encompasses 71.54 acres across 11 parcels with a mix of commercial, residential, lodging, entertainment, and supporting uses. The size of the development area makes a PD overlay appropriate. A coordinated master plan is critical for infrastructure efficiency, transportation planning, drainage, utilities, and long-term compatibility. This scale of development benefits from a unified planning approach rather than fragmented development approvals. The existing zoning across this site is varied. It's showing mixed use and community commercial. The PD overlay provides a unified development framework. This allows the city to regulate development comprehensively rather than parcel by parcel. The proposed zoning is a planned development, which establishes coordinated zoning and development framework for future growth. The proposal creates predictability for future infrastructure and land use. The PD establishes standards specific to this development. Any future changes in use intensity beyond the approved PD would still require additional city review and approval. These next two slides are important. It is showing us the land use is currently vacant and intended to include a variety of land uses, including but not limited to retail and commercial development, restaurants and supporting services, hotel and resort lodging, nightly rental cabins, workforce housing, indoor and outdoor recreational uses, culture and entertainment attraction, including a museum. Here is an aerial view with the utilities. Infrastructure planning is one of the most important components of a development of this scale. Utilities, drainage, roadway access, transportation improvements must all function together. The applicant team and staff have been working collaboratively to identify challenges early in the process. What you're looking at here on the screen, the purple is the property boundaries of interest. The green is going to be our sewer mains, and the blue is the water mains. So here we talk about the 2030 plan again. This request is consistent with the community plan of 2030. The future land use map designates this area as community commercial and employment. The proposed PD aligns with the city's long-term growth strategy, and the development supports economic growth, job creation, and expanded commercial opportunity. This application was evaluated against the review criteria established in section 9448 of our Branson Municipal Code. It promotes public health, safety, and welfare. It's compatible with surrounding development. It supports economic development. It allows coordinated transportation and utility planning. And it's not expected to create significant adverse impacts that cannot be mitigated. Staff recommends approval with conditions. The public infrastructure improvements must comply with city standards and technical specs. The development must proceed in accordance with the approved phasing plan, and any increase in development intensity or land use changes beyond the approved PD would require additional review. These conditions ensure continued oversight while still allowing flexibility necessary for a project of this magnitude. Again, this did go before the Planning Commission on May 5th, and we got a unanimous recommendation for approval for 8-0. Staff believes this preliminary development provides a strong framework for coordinated growth within the Branson Meadow TIFF area. This approval allows the city and developer to continue working collaboratively through infrastructure planning, phasing, transportation coordination, and future site development while ensuring consistency with the community plan. Again, Todd Chandler with Great River Engineering and Grant Wilkins with Fieldcrest Properties are available tonight to answer any of your questions about their planned development. Does the board have any questions?
Any members of the board have any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ruth.
I'd just like to make some comments here. I received notice that there were complaints about this project and this plan development. I worked in the planning department, and being on the planning commission, I knew this was all going to come through. You do work with a great group. I personally know Bill Young. I've known him for about 30 years and worked with him for about half of those when I worked here, and he would mentor, and he is the king of plan development zoning packets. So I asked him, I'm like, what is the problem? I'm hearing there's, horrible complaints. As always, people say, oh, they're having such a tough time. He said, no. He goes, they work with us so well. We're able to negotiate on some of the changes we want to make. He said, tell them not to take it personally. I do these in Ozark, I do these in Nixa, and it's all, because it's just a little bit tough because this isn't what everybody's doing anymore. So I just want to say thank you because I also asked when you're going to have an open for business. So Amanda made me aware of that, and I sat in on that meeting, and it was a wonderful conversation. It was nice to hear the discussion, and I didn't hear any problems there either, and it sounds like we're just moving right along. And it was a 8-0 vote at Planning Commission. So thank you for the job you're doing. Thank you, the great team that you're working with, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this project evolves.
Thank you, Ruth. Any other board members? Glenn?
Yeah, I guess, can you just help? So this is the preliminary plan. What actually happens between preliminary and final, and why do we go through the two steps? Because I understand not every community does this. A lot of times it's a one-stop and you're done.
That would be nice. I think historically, that's the way it has been. It allows for the public to hear, give public input, to do the preliminary and bring that to the board to see if the board would like to have any changes implemented so that staff can take that back, get that information input into the plan development, and really multiple opportunities for people to speak on the matter. It's such a big, complex.
So and I don't want to get too far off track here, but just since this is a great example, am I understanding there's latitude for a discussion to amend our process so that we don't have to go through this two-step process for plan development, that there might be room with an example like this to amend our ordinances to allow a single stop? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I realize there's probably a lot of issues we got to look at. And
Yeah, well, I mean, I can bring up, I believe, Carl Finkenbinder with Margaritaville, right? So he's back again in front of you guys here in a couple of weeks, and he went through the preliminary and the final on the plating side. And that's going to be his 5th meeting, I believe. So it is. There's a lot to it. If this board's desire is to change that, staff will be willing and ready to change that.
I would say, I don't want to speak for the whole board, but I'd say clearly we're biased, I'm biased towards anything that we can do to make it easier for our development community without compromising any principles of the city, right? So I'm not asking that we shortcut anything, and I'm in danger of getting way off topic. I'll stop there and we can continue this discussion some other time.
Mr. Mayor?
Very supportive of that, Glenn.
Mr. Mayor, Glenn asked a logical question. I asked the same question because plan development is zoning. It's just zoning. However, because of the subdivision process, that's why you have a preliminary and a final. I see this as just plan development, zoning coming through without a preliminary and final, and I see them doing a subdivision of the property. But it's like you want to subdivide, but if you don't have the zoning, then you don't know how it should be subdivided. So if they did a preliminary and then came through with a preliminary and final plat, it would achieve the same thing. But if they could be done concurrently, that would be a good idea too. Sometimes they can't, but just a suggestion.
Alex?
And I appreciate that. I think that's fair because the whole goal here is to help streamline efficiencies. We get, I think, hung up sometimes in physical or economic costs, but in the business world, opportunity cost is a real thing too. And so if we can buy back time, we're helping them get, across the finish line. And there's flexibilities there, right? Like when I think of the subdivision process, your team provides for administrative review for a minor subdivision. So there should be there credibility to your department for the things you're already affording and skipping through some of the line while not foregoing our responsibility. So I would love to entertain future conversations on any way we can buy or shorten the process without foregoing our responsibility of safety.
Yep, I agree with that. Any questions, comments from the audience? Yes.
Todd Chandler with Great River Engineering. I would also like to second Alderwoman's Denham's recommendation or gratitude for the planning department. They've been great from our side, from the developer side. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I know they get scrutinized a lot, but in this particular case, it's been a really good experience. So I appreciate all the time that the planning staff has spent with our team. And it goes outside of just the planning staff too. It's Kathy's team as well as people asking questions about the project. So it really has been a really great process. It would be nice to have a one-stop shop and not have that preliminary and final for cases like this, because we're going to turn around and submit the final as soon as hopefully this is approved.
Yeah.
One question I'd like to have, and this is going off of Grant. He was on the call earlier, but he had to drop off or on earlier. Because of the application timelines, the deadline for the July meeting, for July Planning Commission meeting is this Friday. And so I would respectfully ask for a double read on this so we can hit that July meeting, because otherwise we'll get bumped to August and that just delays everything in the process. So that would be, I don't like double reads either, but in this case, I think we're kind of, forced to ask for that so we don't lose a month in the development process. So with that, I can answer any questions, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Todd.
Yep, thank you.
So, public hearing is now closed. You've heard the first reading of bill number 6674. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any members of the board wishing to speak to this? Any members of the audience? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. The result of the vote?
Is
Looking at me,
6-0,
Glenn.
motion carries.
Oh, yeah.
Mr.
Glenn?
Mayor, I was looking
Glenn,
to
anything
Alderman
you
Cooper to do this. He seems to be the,
We're doing a double read.
you seem to be the
Oh.
master of phrasing this. You want to carry this?
You're doing great. I was going to the bathroom in my mind.
Alderman Schultz? That's funny. We will take a break right after this. Alderman Schultz, anything you want to share?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we have a second reading due to time.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, would you please read this for the second and final reading?
Your Honor, this is the final reading of bill number 6674, an ordinance approving the preliminary plan development of the property known as the Branson Meadows TIFF, Branson, Missouri 65616.
Do I have a motion approving this?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the board? Any discussion by the audience? Madam Clerk, this is a final read. Would you do a roll call vote, please?
Harkness?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Denham?
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
The result of the vote is 6-0, motion carries.
Thank you.
And now I think it's a good time to take a 10-minute break. What? Already? Let's get to our seats, please.
Your Honor,
Yes.
the next item is the public hearing and first reading of Bill Number 6675, an ordinance amending Chapter 22 and Chapter 94 of the Branson Municipal Code to align with Missouri Revised Statutes 79.990 regarding no-impact home-based businesses.
Thank you. We'll now get got another public hearing. We'll now open a public hearing and get a staff report from Amanda.
Good evening. You could put up my item number, I believe it's 11.
Yes.
All right. Okay, we'll get into this. I want to thank Alderman Schultz for putting this on our radar a while back, and it's taken a minute to get us here, but I think we've got it taken care of. Staff's proposing amendments to Chapter 22 and 94. The purpose of this amendment is to align Branson Municipal Code with Missouri Revised Statute 71.990. So we met our legal requirements for advertising on April 25th in the Branson Tri-Lakes News. Missouri law expressly prohibits municipalities from requiring license, permits, or prior approvals for qualifying no-impact home-based businesses. Local government may regulate such businesses only in limited circumstances related to the public health, safety, and welfare, sanitation, or nuisance control. As defined by state statute, no-impact home-based businesses is one that operates within a residential dwelling without generating external impacts such as increased traffic, visibility, disruption to surrounding neighborhoods. The city may not impose licensing requirements or fees. Current Branson Municipal Code requires businesses operating within city limits to obtain a business license prior to operation. This requirement conflicts with Missouri Revised Statute 71.990, which prohibits political subdivisions from requiring license, permits, or prior approvals for qualifying no-impact home-based businesses. The proposed amendments ensure consistency between land use regulations, licensing provisions by aligning no-impact home-based businesses with zoning districts that permit residential dwelling structures. The amendment establishes a local framework that aligns with state law while preserving the city's authority to enforce applicable health, safety, nuisance, and operational standards through an administrative affidavit certification process in lieu of licensing, permitting, and fees. We'll start with the definitions here. In 94.5, we've added 3 definitions. Goods means any merchandise, equipment, products, supplies, or materials. The other is home-based businesses, which means any business operated in a residential dwelling that manufactures, provides, or sells goods or services and that is owned and operated by the owner or tenant of the residential dwelling. No-impact home-based businesses means a home-based business that the total number of employees and clients on site at one time does not exceed the occupancy limit for the residential dwelling, and the activities of the business are limited to sale of lawful goods and services, do not cause a substantial increase in traffic through the residential area, occur inside the residential dwelling or in the yard of the residential dwelling, and are not visible from any public street. It's a little bit of redundancy on what I'm saying to you tonight, but the exemptions for a no-impact home-based business pursuant to the Missouri Revised Statute, no license, permit, or prior approval may be required for qualifying no-impact home-based businesses. In lieu of licensing, applicants may certify compliance through an affidavit on the city's Citizen Serve portal. No license fees or permit fees shall be charged for qualifying no-impact home-based businesses, and businesses that do not meet the statutory criteria must apply through the standard home-based business process, which is also available in Citizen Serve. So Chapter 94-61 of the Branson Municipal Code is for the use and structure standards. These standards are intended to ensure home-based businesses remain compatible with residential neighborhoods and do not negatively impact surrounding properties. The business must remain secondary to the home's primary residential use and cannot alter the residential character of the property. Activities must occur indoors or within the permitted yard area and cannot be visible apparent from the street. Operational impacts such as noise, odors, glare, traffic, deliveries, and parking cannot create disruption to the neighborhood. Outdoor storage and commercial-style displays are prohibited unless properly screened from view. Parking is limited and must remain compliant with lawful residential parking standards. Signage is intentionally minimal to maintain the residential appearance of the property, and all home-based businesses must comply with the applicable state and federal laws, including licensing and tax requirements. So reimbursement for qualifying no-impact home-based businesses applies to fees collected on or after August 28th, 2022. And this is consistent with the effective date of the revised state statute. To reduce potential delays, the Director of Planning and Development or the City Administrator may review and determine eligibility based on compliance with statutory no-impact criteria, classification of the business, and supporting documentation affidavit submitted by the applicant. Communication with the applicants will occur through multiple outreach methods to ensure the community is informed of this change. The Communications Department will issue a press release and share information on social media platforms. And notice will also be advertised through the local paper, and a mailer regarding reimbursement information will be sent to the addresses on file. We have addressed the home-based business and no-impact home-based business to our table of permitted uses. When we were reviewing this, we wanted to ensure consistency between land use regulations and licensing provisions by aligning the no-impact home-based business with zoning districts that permit residential dwelling structures. This update will include a permitted use in the zoning districts of community commercial, mixed use, downtown, and entertainment. So staff is recommending approval amending Chapter 22 and Chapter 94 of the Branson Municipal Code to align with Missouri Revised Statute 71.990. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that very thorough update, Amanda. Any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Glenn?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. So this, as she said, it was a minute to get us here, but a lot of things, it had a lot of moving parts to it once they started getting into it. And I just want to thank all the staff that was involved. And even the Planning Commission had have a special meeting to affect the zoning to support this. So I think we've had all hands on deck on this one, and it's gone through a few serious iterations. Our legal department has done some great work here. Even getting it resynced back up to all the new changes in Citizen Serve got done. So this is some heavy lifting to come back up to state statutes. I appreciate it. And just by way of disclosure, you know, I'm probably one of these home-based businesses, but because all this does is bring us in compliance with state law, I will not recuse myself from any of the discussions or voting.
Any other aldermen? Anybody from the audience? This public hearing is now closed. So you've heard the first reading of Bill 6675. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any members of the board wishing to speak regarding this matter? Glenn, I would like to take a moment and thank you for driving this also.
My role was minor, but you're welcome.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Nope. Then let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Amanda, thank you very much.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of Bill number 6676, an ordinance amending Chapters 6, 22, 78, and 86 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to quality of life offenses.
You've heard the first reading of Bill 6676. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll get a report from Thomas Condro.
Good evening. You've reached the law and order portion of tonight's production. In front of you is a bill that discusses amendments to several ordinances. So I'd like to start by giving you a little bit of context, and then I'll briefly identify the overarching purpose of these amendments, and then we'll wrap it up with a brief summary of each of those changes. Thank you. So the background for the proposed amendments here is that the city has received some input from local business owners, particularly in the downtown area, regarding crimes and quality of life concerns that they've observed. And I think that input has been ongoing over the last several months. Some of the observations that they've made pertain to criminal conduct that is well covered in our municipal code and state statute. For example, reports of assault, reports of public intoxication to some extent are addressed in some ways in our code as well as state law. But other reports that they brought to our attention are not necessarily addressed clearly in our existing code, and there are some gaps and outdated portions of that code. So that brings me to the purpose, the overarching purpose for these amendments. The intent here is to equip law enforcement with the best tools for responding to these kinds of reports. When they hear about individuals being out in public with alcohol where it shouldn't be, when they get reports of people using public spaces as living accommodations, and so forth and so on, we want to make sure that they can look to the code and find some legal support for taking action if that's necessary or appropriate. As far as the individual changes, I'm not going to go line by line unless anyone is going to require that. But just to summarize each of the sections briefly, we're looking at an amendment of our existing ordinance on section 6-2, which currently just prohibits drinking alcohol in certain public places. The amendment would add a provision prohibiting the possession of open containers of alcohol in public, subject to some exceptions. The next significant change is in chapter 22 of the code, and that would amend a few different sections to simplify our definitions, bring them up to date with current case law. On solicitation, we would remove some surplus terminology and repeal a permit process that is not currently in use. And we would enforce, hopefully, the city's ability to apply this ordinance as necessary if reports are made of solicitation behavior that's not in line with what we'd like to see in the community. And then we would also be adding an additional section to Chapter 78 to address public camping. That is the practice or behavior of using public spaces as a living accommodation. And then lastly, in Chapter 86, we would be moving part of what is currently prohibited in Chapter 22, people entering the roadway to interact with motor vehicles. We would be moving that into its own conduct-based rule in Chapter 86. In substance, the rules would be similar. There would also be some exceptions for various employees acting in the course of their employment and also for emergencies. And that's all I have as far as a summary. Thank you.
Would you scroll up a little bit under camping? Well, now they're just toying with me.
I'm sorry. Okay.
What was the question, Mayor? Sorry, we were getting the right document up. We have a proposed amendment, and that was the one that we had up on accident, so.
It was under camping. Okay. Any board member have any questions or comments on this?
Mayor?
Yes, Glenn.
Yeah, I first just want to say thank you to our legal staff. I think the speed at which you guys jumped on this, did the research to understand current case law and so on was just outstanding. I know our community in general will be appreciative of it, but I know certainly the downtown community will be as well. If there's not a lot of other questions, I do have a couple of minor amendments that I'd like to propose to this, that I've already reviewed with the legal department to get them in the correct form. So you can see down on line 223, I would like to move that and I have a couple of amendments, if it's all right with you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just do them in together.
You bet.
So we have on line 223, I'm recommending that we add what you see in blue, which is trolley stops and shelters, just to reiterate as an example that that is city property, and so that there's no confusion about that it's enforceable as public property. And then the second amendment relates to the vehicle approaches. If you could swing to, yeah, thank you. You know, I work many of our special events over the years, and we have many volunteer groups that are active with parades and special events. You know, like we have the Branson's Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association are often out there. Now we've got a very robust CERT organization through the fire department. They're out there. We've got private licensed security guards that are out there. And I just thought it would be prudent to add those types of personnel to people that are excluded from running afoul of speaking to vehicles that are in traffic, because that's often their very purpose in these events, is to divert traffic in the live streets away from the parade routes and so on. So, Mr. Mayor, I motion those two amendments.
Was there, excuse me a second, was there another one on top, Glenn? Right there?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that one. That should be on there as well. Thank you.
So that's a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Any discussion from the audience? Marshall?
Marshall Howden, Ward 1. As we continue to talk about downtown and the evolution that it goes through, and including nightly entertainment and things like that, my question would be, and forgive me, I haven't been able to read this whole thing, the question of busking. Yeah, I know, right? Busking or performing music downtown. You know, I think it could maybe get into a gray area when we talk about things like this. You could maybe consider that, camping down there, but my goodness, I think in a music town like Branson, you'd probably want to carve out some kind of exception for people playing music. So that's just a specific question, if that's involved in any of this.
Thank you, Marshall. Any other questions or comments? So it's okay. So we're now going to vote on the amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Are there any other questions or comments on the bill itself?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I just get some clarification? This is citywide or specific to downtown?
With respect to just one of the ordinances or the whole bill, most of these ordinances would apply throughout the city, although the original impetus was input or concerns from businesses primarily in the downtown district.
Can you go back to the top, where he made the amendments, approaching vehicles, just the where's that at? I think we're going up. Yeah, back to the top of that. Keep going. Okay, yeah, just a second. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other?
So just to clarify, yeah, as we adopt this, this will be for the entire city.
That's correct. Some of the ordinances have language that pinpoints certain locations, so I just wanted to sort of, in the interest of a full answer, point that out. For example, the solicitation ordinance, both currently and amended, pinpoints certain locations where solicitation is restricted, but otherwise it's permitted if not restricted. Same for the ordinance with respect to the alcohol. That doesn't apply in people's private homes or places like that, but it does apply in some of the public settings that are specified, such as streets and sidewalks.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Glenn.
I guess maybe just we could explore our former alderman's question about busking a little bit. And I'm looking to our attorney here to kind of add context. I think, as I understand it, and then you can correct me, is there's nothing in these amendments that directly address busking. It could indirectly affect it. And my example would be if somebody set up a large portable amplifier in the middle of the sidewalk and was effectively blocking the sidewalk, this ordinance would affect that. But their ability to be an entertainer in any part of our city isn't directly addressed through any of this, if I understand it correctly.
That's correct, Alderman. My understanding is the same.
Would it be fair to say that they, while performing that act, would be cognizant that they shouldn't block the sidewalk, so they're not prohibited as long as they're doing their part to obey the intent of the ordinance?
Yeah, I'm a little foggy on this. I know we do have some ordinances that restrict amplifiers and things like that.
Volume, yeah.
Yeah. So there's some other related ordinances. We're just not dealing with them tonight. I've had people in my ward ask for us to address it not in a highly restrictive way, but just in a more programmatic way. So that maybe it'll be something we can work on in the future. As well as this has gone, I would say it would be worth looking at.
Okay, good point. Yep, Kathy?
Just, can somebody spell out this word for me? Because I have no idea what the real word is.
It's busking, busking. Yeah, it's kind of an old term. It relates to entertaining in some fashion. Usually it's implied in the street.
Okay, I'm just too young, apparently, to have heard of this term.
Oh, yeah, that's it. I should have mentioned that. You're too young.
Yeah,
That's-
Kathy
I
asked
forgot.
me, I'm like, I've been in this business 40 years. It's the first time I ever heard that word.
That's because you got a theater there, sir.
Busk. I get down.
Don't forget the former alderman has a master's degree in history, so don't underestimate him.
Any other questions, comments? Chris? Oh. No, I thought I asked for the audience, but come on up.
A lot of the downtown has shown up tonight, and a lot of them couldn't, but they all appreciate this and really appreciate the time your staff put into it, and thank you to our alderman that helps facilitate this for us, but just thank you for this.
Thank you for that, Chris. Anybody else in the audience? No more questions, comments from the board, then I say we vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Branson, Missouri, declaring the city's policy and intent to submit to the qualified voters of the City of Branson for approval at a duly called election any proposed change that would add to or expand the permitted use of tourism taxes collected pursuant to Section 94.815 RSMO.
Do I have a motion adopting this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
A motion is second. Get a staff report from Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. This resolution is before you tonight to provide further clarity and emphasis on the particular requirement that we would have were in the event that a bill in Jefferson City to potentially allow the Board of Aldermen to bring to the voters, or to decide, if you will, as a first step, of a potential expanded use of our tourism sales tax dollars, that before that permission would be able to be implemented, that action, that it would have to go before a vote of the people. So state law already requires that, but late in the process, we were asked, could you get the language put into the bill just for further clarification? There was some disagreement with some of the legislative attorneys in Jeff City about confusion that might cause or some other challenges that it might raise. So what we thought instead that we would do is bring it to you all to be able to say, again, in the event that the legislature and the governor grant the permission to Branson to potentially expand the use of the tourism sales tax, that before that would happen, it has to go to you all first, after public input and opportunities and presentations. But then you all would pass the keys to the voting public of the residents of Branson before that change could be implemented. So it's just further emphasis and explanation behind that. And we ask for your support on that resolution, just to provide that further clarity to our public. Thank you.
Any members of the board wishing to address this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Excuse me. Thank you for putting this on the agenda. I believe that everybody has the right to vote. If they want to support it, fine. If they don't, fine. But we should not, I don't feel we should take away the right of someone to vote on an issue.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I do, of course.
Yes, Ashley.
I do appreciate kind of this fail-safe for this bill. However, I just kind of want the record to show that this, for me, does not give permission, in my opinion, for us to move forward with 1646. I'm still in opposition of that bill as a whole, but I do appreciate this fail-safe if it were to pass. So thank you.
You're in opposition of 1646? Okay. Any other board member?
And just
Alex?
yeah, sir. Just additional clarification. It was a constitutional challenge from the House drafting attorney with the Hancock Amendment. So, also echoing the sentiment of the order of events and of involving the public. Should the public have had a different want or desire, we didn't hear that, and so that being its own separate issue. And to just be clear, I've had constituents reach out and say, "Hey, you shouldn't vote in support of this resolution because you're supporting the 1646 topic in the sports complex," and that's disengaging. I want to disengage that observation to show that this resolution is affirming the existing state law, that it will always go to the vote of the people. It's just a restatement of statute, not a position of support for a particular topic.
Yep, thanks for that clarity. It was my understanding from the beginning that anything that comes down affecting the changing of the use of taxes by state statute has to go back to the public to be voted on. Glenn?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my position on this, we tried when the 1646 thing was moving along to insert guarding language because the community was pretty clear that, they wanted to have a say. They would have preferred a say up front, but they wanted certainly a say afterwards before we did anything relative to the bill. And I think the Senate, as my understanding of the process was, actually got the language put in, which was very close to what we're talking about here today. But when it moved over to the House, it was the House attorney in the perfection process that said, no, that is already covered by the Hancock Amendment, which is in our Constitution. It's not even a regulatory issue. It's actually in our Constitution, so it's stronger than a regulation. And so they said they would not support that in the bill. So I appreciate the fact that since that one safeguard that I was in favor of, at least, wasn't able to be included in the bill as it progressed, even though we've only got till the end of this week to find out its eventual disposition. I appreciate this resolution because while it may not, it doesn't change anything in reality on the ground, it just reaffirms our commitment to the public that before anything happens, that the public will absolutely have input and ultimately the public will have to directly vote on it, that we're not going to take action on our own.
Yeah, and I guess the fact that it is in the Hancock bill that I think trumps all, right? So any other questions or comments? Any questions, comments from the audience?
David Cushman, Branson. I'm just really disappointed that this bill ever went to the state without the input of the community first. There are a lot of people in this community that would have loved to have had a voice. Maybe they didn't want it going into a sports complex. Maybe they wanted some of the dollars shared, additional dollars shared for marketing. But that's not going to be part of this bill that's going to the House or going to the Senate, okay? Branson, you know, we've heard many times during the last legislative groups about transparency and open and honest government. That's not the case here. This was all formed in the back room where the community did not have input. They weren't able to have a voice. And the voices were tamped down. And so I'm just very disappointed. It should have never happened, should have never gone forward. Because as you are creating a resolution, this resolution with the next legislative group doesn't have to stay in place, correct? Can they deny this resolution in the next legislative body? Or 10 years from now? Or 15 years from now?
David, if this body did, it's still in the Hancock bill. It controls the state. All municipalities have to vote to make any changes, regardless of what this body says.
I understand, okay? But as we have seen, you know, here's the problem with this bill. There is absolutely no limit to the amount of dollars that can be taken out of the infrastructure account and pledged towards other uses. There's no limit.
The limit would be determined by this board and, more importantly, by the voters.
Or the next board, or the next board after that.
Or the next voters after that, right? It's the voters that are going to decide.
Well, the voters of this community, we should have had public discourse regarding this legislation before it ever went to the state level. And I'm hoping that that never, ever happens again in this community. It was wrong. It should have never happened. It was a pet project.
Thank you, David.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just make a comment, I don't want to get us too far off track
Yeah,
here.
that's not- Okay.
But
A bit limited, if you would.
I will. So one of the things that our president-elect has started to work on behind the scenes is to develop a more formal legislative process for the Board of Aldermen. I think we've fallen into disrepair as a board in terms of using the great resources we have in our representative and our senator in the state to actively drive issues that we as a board think need to be driven. And I will say that it doesn't address your immediate concern, but at least for the future, it's basically a guarantee that the board will, in a public session, work through legislative issues, and we'll all be on the same page, and the public will be aware of what we're working on. And more importantly, our own representatives up in Jeff City can go and run with something. I mean, we've got two great representatives right now. We're in really good shape from a power-based perspective up in Jeff City. And so I hope we can learn a little bit from this and just leverage those capabilities with other initiatives that our president-elect has started driving forward. So.
I completely agree. We're not supposed to, but
Well, I'd just like to,
go ahead.
well, I just wanted to Dave's comment, and I respect what you're saying, I see what you're saying, but it really wasn't, there was a lot of verbiage out there over the last campaign season that, oh, there's a lot of dirty work behind the scenes and this and this and that, but to me, it didn't feel like that. All I've ever heard for years is, man, we need a sports facility. We need a sports facility. The discussion went on back there. We were told up front, ultimately this is going to go to the voter anyhow. So we put this in motion because that's all we've ever heard is how valuable a sports complex would be. So in my eyes, when I'm in those discussions back there, I wasn't thinking, oh, we're being sneaky or dirty back here. We're just trying to get something proposed together to meet what we've been hearing for years as a sports community, facility, and then ultimately it's going to go to the voter. So, I mean, again, I respect your opinion on it, but to me, it never felt like it was something dirty or behind the door, closed scene stuff going on. I just wanted to say that
Yeah,
publicly.
and I'll elaborate a little bit. When the discussion came up for the sports facility, there was a lot of support for that. And so getting this bill through the state was nothing more than a possible financing vehicle. Because to come up with whatever it's going to be, $70 million, if we can't come up with the funds, then it doesn't matter what our community feels about a sports facility. So it was just putting a arrow in the quiver of possible financing if the community supported that.
I understand your comments, okay? But it didn't come to light of day until one of our candidates on the dais, Mr. Williams, brought it to light. That's the first time the community became aware of what was going on.
Okay,
It shouldn't have taken that.
we'll do better. Anybody else in the audience? And any of the board? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution of the Board of Aldermen consenting to the mayor's appointments to the Board of Directors of the Grand Country Resort Community Improvement District.
So do I have a motion adopting this resolution?
So moved.
Second? We have a motion and a second. Get a staff report from Hillary.
Going for shortest staff report of the evening. This is going to appoint Derek Frederickson to replace the unexpired term of Kathy Stepp until March 2028 on the Grand Country Resort Community Improvement District.
Any members of the board wishing to speak regarding this?
Could you repeat that? I'm just,
Anybody in the audience wishing to address? Back to the board. Any board members? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Congratulations, Kathy.
Okay, so the next item is appointments to the Tourism Community Enhancement District. The board will be voting by ballot, and the applicant receiving the most votes will be appointed to the Tourism Enhancement Community District to fill the unexpired term of Alex Williams until the unexpired term of Alex Williams, and to appoint the next term to expire September 2029.
So do I have a motion to vote by ballot on the following applicants for the Tourism Community Enhancement District?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Since I'm the one that was stepping away, I figured I'd give an explanation since this board, or the previous board put me there. And on this particular topic, as a year-long member of the TCED, it's our largest funding source for a tourism economy, so it's a huge role, it's a big responsibility, and respecting that it's a separate political subdivision, I felt it was most appropriate to step away from that role and take up this new post, knowing just the gravity of conversations there, and allow that group to effectively run that mission set separate, because I know it's the precedent of this board not to get involved in the doings and the disposition of other political subdivisions. So I appreciate everyone's support, letting me be there, and then understanding why I stepped away from it.
The board will now be voting by ballot, and the city clerk will read the results. Please vote for one applicant.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, while we're doing the count, I want to thank our former TCED representative. I think he did a great job on that board when he was on there, and just want to say my appreciation for his work.
Okay. Gonna go read the results. Alderwoman Harkness voted for Nick Guavel. Apologize if I'm not saying that name correctly. Alderman Lucas voted for Derek Frederickson. Alderman Cooper voted for Nick Guavel. Alderwoman Denham voted for Derek Frederickson. Alderman Schultz voted for Derek Frederickson. And Alderman Williams voted for Derek Frederickson. So the result of the vote is 4 for Derek Frederickson and 2 for Nick Guavel. Derek Frederickson will be appointed to the TCED.
Well, okay, congratulations. So we're at the report section of the meeting. Ashley. No, we're going to go through this.
My report already? Okay, I am settling in. We've been doing some onboarding, and it's been very, very enlightening and informative. I think we only have about 2 more departments to go, so I think that's great. One of my highlights was working and listening to what Cindy and Parks had to bring to the table, and I'm really excited to continue those conversations, see what we can do there. The chiefs, our fire chief and our police chief were able to give me a rundown on how amazing their departments are and the staff that they run, and so I am amazed by that, and I was grateful to be able to ask all my concerned citizens questions like at one time, so that was cool. Also for the public, you need to know when it comes to your roads and your streets, there's actually, I learned this from Michael and Kendall, that there's actually some places online where you can go and report a pothole, and you can go and report if you want more police presence if somebody's speeding. So a lot of those things I heard on the campaign, there's actually a resource for that. So I think that's excellent, and I'll do my best to push that information out so that everybody has it. One thing that I got to do that I thought was a lot of fun is the Cub Scouts asked me to come and speak to their group about elections and about campaigning. And I was like, I don't know if I'm the one you want, but it was fun. And most of the feedback when I was talking about municipalities and parks and trails that really related to the Cub Scouts. So one thing they said that we definitely need is another slide on the Recplex pool. And I thought, well, we're not Silver Dollar City adding a new roller coaster every year, but I'll make sure to take that back. And they had some ideas about some park equipment. So I thought that was cute. And I was like, maybe in some world we can get some input from the kids in the community on what they'd like to see in their parks. And so really, I'm grateful for the process, grateful to the staff. I've been coming in blazing, so I appreciate you guys and your patience with me, and I'm going to continue to blaze. And I'm just thank you for this position. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Artie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we see tonight government in action. You know, having been in politics since 1980, I've told people that there's 2 things you should never see made: sausage and law, because they're both very dirty. And so even though we don't always agree on everything, we have to learn to agree to disagree agreeably. Because I found when I was in the legislature in Kansas that there would come up a bill and somebody would be on the other side just fighting me tooth and nail. But the next day, they'd be on my side on another bill. So you can't burn your bridges, and you have to learn how to get along to get along. And you'll find as you come to these meetings or watch us online that we're not always going to agree. And that's how the process works. And we need to, put past elections behind us, and thank goodness we're not dealing with political parties, because we'd all be wrong. But it's fun. I've told people it was one of the most interesting, most educational, most frustrating things I ever did in my life. And I'm a political animal. I love it. And so just try and get rid of me.
Thanks, Artie.
Oh,
Clay?
was that a challenge?
Yeah, it sounded like it.
No, I'm good. I'm good, Mayor.
Okay. Ruth?
I'm going to be contacting each city department because I think you're all amazing, but you can guess which one I started with. Michael, you're next. But I got an update from planning. I just asked, what are some things that are going on in your department? So thank you, Amanda and Christine. Staff recently spoke at a lunch and learn with the Tri-Lakes Board of Realtors to provide education on zoning, short-term rentals, permitted uses, and city tools available to assist realtors, residents, and businesses. The department has increased coordination with the Chamber of Commerce and Convention Center to improve communication regarding temporary use permits, special events, and event logistics. Biweekly coordinator meeting for large development projects have been implemented to improve communication between departments, applicants, and stakeholders. These productive meetings are helping identify challenges early, reduce delays, and improve project outcomes. And it showed tonight with the comment that was made about the department, and I'm hearing it everywhere, so thank you very much for what you do.
Great. Glenn?
I just will piggyback on what was just said, in that I too, and I mentioned this to our administrator the other day, I too have been hearing comments from developers just how things have really changed and are streamlined, and people are more energetic and hopeful to developers. I know they got a lot of other things that they're working on, but I think it's notable that in a short period of time there's been some substantial changes in that department, and the community is very appreciative. Todd from GRE, his comments here, he offered those to me directly, unsolicited, at a Rotary meeting. He said, I just want you to know how much change there's been and how much it's appreciated. So, and like I said, I know they got a lot more to work on. I know some of the aldermen will be working on some of those issues as well, so but it's just appreciated that when somebody goes out of their way to say those things to me, I take note. So
Very nice.
I do want to comment, nobody's brought it up yet, but this weekend, starting on Friday and Saturday, we'll just continue the downtown theme for this meeting. They're having their downtown festival, a lot of entertainers, a lot of busking going on there. Yeah. You can use that term anytime you want. Should be a great time. There's a lot of entertainment. Many of the shops have special things planned in them. So if you're looking for something to do with the family or by yourself, come on downtown. Starting on Friday, all day Saturday, it should be a great time. It should truly be enjoyable. We saw it in the last festival, and I know downtown's even more energized on this one as well. So I think I'll cut my comments off there since it's a late evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Alex?
Good evening, everybody. My update, a couple things. As was mentioned already, local level legislative priorities are a big deal to me. I've had some opportunities in previous roles with the Chamber of Commerce as the former proactive government chair, and just working with other agencies doing the same process right now. So full credit to the Chamber for going through that same process, because it's not just the city that's looking at, hey, how do we want to do this so we're better prepared for our state reps when they ask us, hey, what do you want us to work on? When you're sitting in those meetings with our partners across Taney-Como, with our state and federal reps and their staff, we're ready and we have an executable, measurable plan. And so I look forward to continuing to work with the team on that. Just had my first Rally Point Ward 1, which is my commitment I made to the community that I'll be accessible outside of City Hall at least once a month. at a Ward 1 business. And so looking forward to return to another business owner there in the audience, former alderman. We'll be stopping at his place here on the trail. And so the whole intent there is part of the feedback loop that I talked about. I'm going to make myself readily available if it's 3 people or if it's 20 people or whatever it is. The presence and the opportunity will be there to solicit feedback from the community. My crosswalk safety initiative, I'm working with Director Woods and his team, and I appreciate the professionalism and the speed. I will say that as a citizen, it was the same speed as it was in this role, and that it's super fast. So I'll give him that. He treats everything with professionalism, and I just have to give you that credit. So I look forward to seeing what our partners at MoDOT are going to say on that topic. Flag initiative, Director Shook, getting to work with you, the SOP process for looking at flags in the city. We've already made measurable progress on just getting compliant and then being the model example so that we can move out into the community. There's a lot of work that can be done, and that's the prerogative of private business owners and private citizens, but I think once they know what right looks like, they'll do the right thing once we get out there, and that's part of my initiative is education and outreach. Orientation days at the city have been informative. We spent full 8-hour days, half days, going through every department and learning about what this looks like so that we can be better prepared, and that's Alderwoman Harkness and I appreciate the opportunity and the time that was carved out for us to do that. I had an opportunity to go to Cantwell basketball court, answer my constituent phone call at 8:30 at night, and I think the resident was more shocked than I was that the phone was answered, and that I showed up at the basketball court just to let him tell me in real time with what he was observing, which I will say both issues, I won't get into specifics, were resolved for that resident. So again, community member gets to ask a question, they get an answer, and that's awesome. I call that a win all day long. And then I'll end on the red, white, and blue. I'm an avid runner. I go through downtown regularly, and I was pleasantly surprised to see the pop of red, white, and blue pop up on downtown. So full credit to the artistic talents of the folks that are, dressing up us for the red, white, and blue in America's 250th. It's a blessing and an honor to be here, and thanks again for trusting me to do business on your behalf.
Okay, thanks. Kathy? I think due to the late hour, I'm going to pass on my comments. I appreciate everybody in our community. The comments that I get is I just continue to be so proud of each one of our departments. And I get the accolades because they tell them to me. But again, I just wanted to pass them along to the department heads. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say